the consumer economy and capitalism. Are you kidding? You know,
How many
they don't make
apples have you
stuff to
had?
last.
How many apples have you had?
I think I've had a 4 and 2. I'm on my second SE, but I had a 4 before that, I think.
Okay. How many on you now?
3.
I plead the fifth.
I know. Yeah, she didn't. Hey, she didn't have every apple that came out.
I didn't know like the 5 cameras.
I thought I saw her standing in that line when they lost the phone. You know.
No, you know what? But I'm not buying any more phones. I'm going to keep this phone.
No, you're not, because Apple not gonna let you keep it.
I
Because they're
know.
gonna tell you
All
you
right.
got to
Well,
get a new phone.
Hey guys, we're live. We're live on YouTube, so why don't we start up, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll start up in a couple of minutes. I just want everybody to know we're live on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know if in the control room, DeAndre is able to trim this before it's broadcast again, but anyway, enough of making fun of Alderman Carruthers and his selection of phones and brands. And Apple owes Natalie and I some compensation for all our promotion of the Apple products.
I'm right.
Yeah.
I will say for work, I use a PC. I don't use a Mac. I find I'm able to get a lot more work done quickly on the PC than on my Mac. But maybe that's because my Mac is pretty old. I haven't replaced it in a while. But I know all my students, Apple products are huge with them. You know, almost all the kids
Where do you teach?
at Chicago Kent. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, I asked my brother to recommend a computer. So, I didn't even know Lenovo is the brand that took over for IBM. And I wouldn't have known. Yeah, so the Lenovo ThinkPads are sort of like the state-of-the-art IBM products. So yeah, it's always nice to know somebody who knows.
Are they considered to be pretty good? Is the Lenovo considered to be? Yeah.
Very good, very reliable. I mean, this is like a $1,800 machine, but it's very quick, and it doesn't crack Zoom as much as my Mac did. That's for sure. All right, well, 6:28, and I'm going to let Mary McMahon into our waiting room, since you're right. With each candidate, there's a little bit of an introduction. Welcome. Well, hello. Welcome, Mary McMahon. B is for Bernadette, is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, and Mary McMahon is a candidate in the newly created Callahan vacancy, and we're so very glad that she's joining us tonight for the Coalition PAC's second judicial forum, second night of their judicial forum. We had many candidates last evening, and tonight we are beginning our judicial forum with Mary McMahon, who, as I said, is running in the Callahan vacancy. We'll also hear tonight from many other candidates, including Thomas Donnelly, Meredith Hamer, Claudia Hernandez, Alderman Howard Brookins, Monica Somerville, Elizabeth Ryan, Ray Mitchell, Jacqueline Marie Griffin, Dan Bellinoff, Yolanda Harris-Sayre, Sarah Harris, Lisa Michelle Taylor, Dominique Ross, Tom Nowinski, and Marcia Conway. So without further ado, Mary, let's begin our forum. I'll be remiss without mentioning that the Coalition PAC brings together leaders from the West Side, including elected officials, and we are very grateful to have the candidates come before us so they can meet our membership we'll be issuing our endorsements in these races following our May 22nd endorsement meeting. So Mary, please tell us about yourself by telling us what schools you attended, including college and law school, and also, more importantly, why are you Dutch?
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here and participate. So thank you for that. I went to DePaul Law School. Before that, I went to George Washington University for college, and I graduated from Fenwick High School in Oak Park. I've been an assistant state's attorney for 17 years. I worked as an attorney that whole time on behalf of the people of the state of Illinois. I'm running for judge because I believe I've got the experience and the qualifications to do it. I've been in public service my whole career, working for people and with people, and I know we need good judges to do that. And I've, as an assistant state's attorney, I've worked in courtrooms the entire time on behalf of the people of the state of Illinois, advocating for victims' rights, but really every day is an opportunity to do the right thing. And that's what I've done as a state's attorney, and that's what I would be looking to do as a judge.
And can you please tell us about your legal experience, where you've worked, what type of law you practice? Well, we kind of know that as a county assistant state's attorney, but you said 17 years, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you go through the different divisions and the of the office that you've practiced in, and also tell us about your experience in terms of jury trials, how many you've had as opposed to bench trials? And whether you've ever done any appellate work or anything like that?
Yes. So I started as a new ASA in misdemeanor court, as many of us do. And in misdemeanor court, you're trying assaults and batteries and things of that nature. I was in that assignment for about a year, working in Chicago courtrooms. And after that, I went on to work in the Narcotics Prosecution Bureau, onto the Felony Review Unit in our office, and then onto the Felony Trial Division, where I spent the bulk of my time. In the Felony Trial Division, I was assigned to courtrooms every day, mainly at the criminal courthouse at 26 in California, but I also worked out in the suburban courthouses as well. And during that period of time, I've tried hundreds of bench trials. I've tried 65 felony jury trials. I've tried cases, ranging from the most serious crimes, first-degree murder, criminal sexual assaults, home invasion, and also, DUIs, thefts, and traffic cases. And, I, continuing through the trial division, went on to become a supervisor. I'm currently assigned as a supervisor out in the Skokie Courthouse now. I also worked as a supervisor in the Rolling Meadows Courthouse. I'm currently responsible for supervising 6 felony rooms and 4 misdemeanor courtrooms. That's a total of 26 ASAs. I work with my law enforcement agencies on a daily basis to assist them in their investigations and also through the prosecution of our cases. I have not handled any appellate work in my time as a state's attorney, as I've spent really the bulk of the time in courtrooms. But my experience it's beyond working in a courtroom. It's really working with people. I've traveled the entire county as an assistant state's attorney in our felony review unit. We would respond to speak with witnesses and victims of crime, often whether it's at a police station or in somebody's home or in a hospital, to talk to them about their experience or what's happened to them. And then moving forward through the process to courtrooms and beyond.
Mary, we also want to ask you about Bar Association evaluations. So there's the Alliance of Bar Associations that has 12, 13 member organizations, as well as the Chicago Bar Association. Have you gone before them, and do you have results yet?
I'm undergoing that process right now. So I've already received results from the Illinois State Bar Association. I was found qualified, and I received my results today from the Decalogue Society. I was found qualified or recommended by them as well. The remainder of my results are outstanding.
All right, thank you. I know that my co-hosts also probably have a few questions for you and Natalie, Alderman Carruthers.
Okay, sure. Hi, Attorney McMahon. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are treated fairly and sentenced fairly?
I think we have to look at every case on its own, and you really have to very seriously take into account, what someone's life experience is and where they're coming from and how we can do better. I think we can always do better and should be looking for success. Every opportunity we can give someone at success, moving is really where we should be looking. And I think those are where my most proud moments as a state's attorney have been, when we find opportunities for success and for people to continue to do well and be, good, contributing, and productive members of society, and to go on and succeed in life. So those are the things that I would hope for in every case. And I also think, as a judge, you have to very seriously take a look at yourself and biases and all of it, and make sure you are, being fair in every case. Keeping an open mind in every case, willing to listen to what everyone has to say, and also be prepared to make the right decisions for the right reasons every single time.
My next question that we have from Coalition is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling enforceable detainer cases?
I think, going to fairness, you really, in every case, you need to be mindful of your role as a judge and to be fair, regardless of what your background is. You do have to look at and acknowledge whether or not you can or can't be fair, in conjunction with the rules of judicial, the canons of judicial ethics. So I think as a judge, you take an oath to be fair, and you better be prepared to do it as a judge.
Okay. And my last question that I have for you this evening is, do you belong to any political and or civic organizations? If so, which ones?
I don't belong to a political organization. I am a Democrat. I'm a voting Democrat. I'm running for judge as a Democrat. As far as organizations I belong to, I'm a member of my parish. I'm a member of the Misericordia Women's Board. I'm also a member of a number of bar associations, including the Illinois State Bar Association, the Women's Bar Association, the Chicago Bar Association, and some of the other bar associations as well.
Okay. Do you serve in any leadership positions in any of those organizations that you mentioned?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to Alderman Carruthers. Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you, Natalie, and how are you, Mary? Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us, and I want you to know that you had the privilege of being the first candidate, which means that you were on time and we were on time. I'm not sure if that's going to happen with everybody past you, but anyway. Couple of things. I've heard your name before, and I know you've been in this attorney's office for a while, and you've handled some. Can you reference, I think I heard your name as it relates to a case out in our area. Can you reference a high-profile case that you were involved in, I believe, involving Congressman Davis?
Yes, I was one of the prosecutors who prosecuted the case involving the murder of his grandson, Javon Wilson. It's a case that I was assigned to early on, along with my two partners. It was a very sad case, and sadly, Javon lost his life during a home invasion when two other people that they knew, teenagers, broke into the family home. They were armed with a gun, and a fight ensued, and Javon was shot and killed during that incident, and it was a horrible tragedy.
All right. What was the disposition of that case?
The two defendants were found guilty after a jury trial and have been sentenced.
I see. All right, thank you. Another question.
Alderman Carruthers, can I just jump in for a second? I'm not sure the outcome of the case is really that important, because I know that the state's attorney's office works very hard, and there's some very talented lawyers, and the evidence is what the evidence is in a case. I will note that John Wilson, who represented one of those defendants, was later appointed and is sitting as the judge, right? I think he's running in the first sub-circuit. So I just wanted to point out that there's nothing wrong with providing a vigorous defense for any defendant. That's for sure.
Well, I think everybody's entitled to that, right? But I'll have to say this, sometimes how vigorous your defense is really depends on who your lawyer is, you know, so.
And I'll say this, I think everybody's entitled to a vigorous defense, and it's what makes our system work. And I will say, John did an excellent job on that case. He worked really hard on behalf of his client, and his client got the best defense anybody could. And that's because of John's hard work on that case. And it was really a pleasure to try that case. As difficult as that case was, and as serious it was, John did an excellent job.
We have to be mindful of the time.
Okay, another question is, Mary, has your campaign received any political endorsements from either elected folks or unions or anybody?
Yes, I've been endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor, also the Electricians Union, Local 134, the Firefighters Union, Local 2, the Plumbers, Local 130, the Operating Engineers, both 150 and 399, and also recently the Pipe Fitters Union.
Okay, and so being mindful of our time, the last question that I would have, if you are endorsed by the coalition, is your campaign be willing to contribute upward to $250 to cover all costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have, Mary.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and speak before us and answer some of these questions. Thank you again, and good luck to you and your candidacy.
Thank you. I hope you have a great night.
Yes, you too. Thank you for joining us. Good seeing you again.
Good to see you.
All right, and now we have Judge Thomas Donnelly, and let me rename him.
His name was it Law Division?
There we go.
There I am.
Hello, Judge Donnelly. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to do that, and we want to move along expeditiously as we're already 3 minutes behind. So, Judge, can you please begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you went to school, including law school, and why you were an associate judge, and now you've been appointed to a full circuit vacancy. So tell us why it was important to run for full circuit.
So I went to Loyola Law School, and after law school, clerked for Justice Mary Ann McMorrow for 2 years when she was on the appellate court. Then I spent 12 years working in the public defender's office doing the Lord's work of defending the indigent accused. And I was served by appointment for 1 year. In 2000, ran and lost by 0.6%. And so I had a 1 year term on the bench in 2000. Then I came back as an associate in 2003, and I've served since then as an associate judge. I sought an appointment to a full circuit position because the position of full circuit allows you to have some more authority in the court, being that you vote for the chief, you vote for associate, you vote for the rules. I've done a lot of advocacy during my time as a judge for changes in rules and laws. Among them, Supreme Court Rule 280, which I drafted, Supreme Court Rule 451G, which I drafted, the Consumer Fairness Act, which I drafted, the Restorative Justice Privilege Bill, which I drafted, and those are all things that where the position of the full circuit judge will allow me more influence to affect reforms that I believe that are necessary to make our system more just. And so that's why I'm running for a full circuit position, and I accepted an appointment from the Illinois Supreme Court.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, can I just briefly ask you if you could turn your device, unless it's got the thing where, it'll automatically turn to, because that way maybe we can see you in full frame. Is that possible?
Okay, I'm on a phone. I don't know.
Yeah. If you turn it 90 degrees.
Oh, like that? Does that work?
His screen is locked, so.
No, yeah, I think you got a lock screen. We'll leave it the way it is, Judge.
Sure. If I have,
Oh, that's much better.
Period.
That's much better, Judge.
okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. We just want our viewers to see you.
I'm not a digital native.
No, so Judge, the second question is, you did talk about how you were a public defender, how you were a clerk for Justice McMorrow. Can you tell us, while you were a public defender, how many cases you tried, how many benches, juries?
You know, I'm sure, I know I tried thousands of bench trials. As a judge, I know I've tried 365 jury trials and 1,000 bench trials. My tally on my jury trials as a public defender, I didn't keep as good track as I have as a judge.
Judge, have you been evaluated by the bar associations? And if so, can you share with us what the ratings are?
The ISBA has evaluated me and rated me highly qualified. The Chicago Bar Association has rated me qualified. I've received no other recommendations from the Alliance Bar Associations as of yet.
So you're still waiting for that, is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I
They're quite behind. I know they're quite behind, but I think a lot of them are coming later this week. I wanna allow my co-host also to ask a few questions. So at this time, I think Natalie House might have a couple of questions for you.
I do. Hello, good evening, Judge
Hi.
Dowling. Good to see you again. I hope you're doing
Good to
well.
see you. I'm
It's a
doing
wonderful
great, thank you.
You have. I really like it. It was very, very nice. Can you please tell us what you will do differently as a judge to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
So one of the programs that I've been working on for the past 10 years is working with dialogues between system impacted folks and judges. The latest one I did was in the fall of last year, where I brought judges from 26th Street to have a dialogue with system impacted people at Precious Blood Ministry for Reconciliation. And that's bringing people both from the victim side, people who have been victims of crime, and also people who've been incarcerated, wrongly incarcerated, and people who say, I was properly found guilty. And talking about the experience of court and how little opportunity people have, both victims and defendants, for voice in our courts, and how wounded that makes people feel on both sides, both complaining witnesses and defendants, and particularly with the wrongfully accused folks who are later exonerated, where they never had a chance to make any statement and make any protestation of innocence, and how that felt to them. So I think one of the things I've tried to do is bridge the gap by bringing encounters with system impacted people. And we have done that for the first time. I'm also the founding chair of the Illinois Judicial College, the educational wing of the Illinois Supreme Court. For the first time this year, in our new judge training, we had 4 system impacted people talk to our new judges about their court experience, particularly their sentencing experience. So one of the things I try to do is bring the dialogue, bring the consumers of our justice system, which are predominantly people of color, into a place where they have voice with judges. We also did that with our juvenile judges. This is something I initiated, having all of our juvenile judges visit Warrenville so that they get to talk to young people who've been incarcerated. It is an earth-shattering event for most judges. They swear when they leave the tour they're never going to sentence anybody to the Department of Corrections. And of course, they probably don't live up to that, but they probably sentence less frequently as a result of that experience. The other one that I really am proud of is we had the Story Catchers, which is a group of court-involved youth, do a play for 100 of our judges at EdCon 4 years ago. And then we have these young people, 2 at a time, lead a discussion with judges of what should be done to improve the criminal justice system. And I saw judges who I know are not people ordinarily sympathetic to the perspective of these court-involved youth come away crying from this session with these young people and say, I never realized that they had hopes, dreams that were being unfulfilled. And I hope that that will give insight to our judges. And I believe very firmly in educational work. That's why I helped found the Illinois Judicial College, which educates not only our judges, but our probation officers, clerks, guardian ad litems, trial court administrators, and our judicial branch staff, which was my vision that the Supreme Court adopted. And one of the cornerstones of that is our work on reducing implicit bias and diversity and inclusion. In fact, we have with the judges' education, we have a real initiative on diversity and inclusion that I could talk to you for about 3 hours.
That's excellent. Okay, well, thank you. My question for you is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling enforceable in detainer cases?
Yes. I think that I think there's a great ability to be fair, so long as you broaden your experience so you understand other people's perspective. I think judges who have a very narrow experience of life, who don't engage with the community in a way in which they experience other perspectives, will always be not as good finders of fact. But if you are a landlord, or say, for instance, you're a property owner, or you have some other perspective, you live in a certain neighborhood, if you are someone who goes out and engages with other neighborhoods, people of other faiths, other life experiences, if you experience what it's like to be attentive through listening or being active in community organizations, I think you can do that. So I think just the fact that you're a landlord shouldn't disqualify you any more than the fact that you're a business owner and you're going to, disqualify yourself from business disputes. But I think it's incumbent upon judges to broaden their experience and diversify their experience.
Excellent. And so you work with Bob Caholtra in the public defender's office. My last question is how bad of a trial partner was he? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Move on.
Hey, Judge Donnelly, what he doesn't mention or hasn't mentioned is that he's very instrumental in the state appellate defender's trial advocacy program that's put on and is even being put on through the pandemic. And he's been instrumental in training so many public defenders, me included. He, of course, worked with Jamie Coons when I was just a newbie. And Jamie Coons is a legend in trial advocacy and instruction in the criminal defense field in Cook County, in my humble opinion. So thank you, Judge Donnelly.
Alderman
Thank
Carruthers.
you. Thank you, Natalie. And I'll just kind of come in after Bob's commercial for the judge. Judge, you should make sure you copy that. You can put it out there on YouTube. But thanks for joining us, Your Honor. Just a couple of things. I think you kind of highlighted some of the areas you were involved in as it relates to community service and some of the other things you were involved in that I think would be considered equivalent to community service. But let me ask you something more substantive in terms of, has your campaign received any political endorsements?
So I'm an endorsed candidate by the Democratic Party. I've also received endorsements from the United Neighborhood of the 35th Ward and many committeemen. I could list them, but that's my endorsements obviously are about 50 of the committeemen. I'm very proud of Karen Yarborough and Calvin Jordan's support, who are very strong and early supporters of mine. As I was with Karen last night, I told her she was my first and earliest big supporter and really made it possible for me to get slating because I kept going after she encouraged me. Those are, and I have many political leaders, Iris Martinez, Tom Dart, Tony Preckwinkle, of course, was very strong supporter of me. And here, I'll give you a funny Tony Preckwinkle story. So I was about to go into slating, and she said, Tom, I want you to meet with me. So I went over to 111 West Washington. She said, I've never been known as an expert in sartorial science, but I would recommend that if you appear before the committeeman, you ditch your bow tie.
Well, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. I don't believe that you did, but I was that lady, so I don't believe that you did. I would also be remiss, just two things, if I didn't just reference the fact that my good friend Wallace Gator Bradley is very supportive of your campaign. But also, if you were endorsed by this body, was your campaign considered be willing to pay the $250 to cover costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
Consider it, we'd do it.
Well, we have to, I know that after being endorsed by the party, I'm sure they might have asked a little something too, but
They did somehow. It wasn't
yeah, I know.
It wasn't in the.
You're supposed to say that first.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say that first and then ask him for the $250.
Right. Well, I'm sure he got a sigh of relief compared to the party's ask, which came a week after endorsement.
Yeah.
So,
We're
only in the three figures. They're in the
right. But that's all I have, Bob and Natalie, and so glad you have joined us, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for I'll be just that one.
Well, it was wonderful to talk with you.
Nice talking.
All right. Good luck.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, so we have a little bit of a break in the action. To recap, we've been able to speak to Mary McMahon and Tom Donnelly. We did have a few other candidates scheduled. However, I don't have anybody in the waiting room.
Yeah.
So what happened with Lisa Taylor?
Miss Taylor is up at 8:20.
Oh, she's no longer at 6:50.
No,
I had her on my schedule for 6:50.
there's nobody in the waiting room.
No, I'm saying, but is there a change, Nellie? I have her at 6:50.
No, I have her at 6:52, so we're missing Lisa Taylor. So she's not there. So Lisa and I have her.
So you have her for 8 something, you said, Bob?
I have Lisa Taylor for 8:20. Yes.
Okay, so all right, well, obviously there must have been a change. We got something different than we had.
So there was a change. Attorney Taylor did ask for a change in schedule. She wanted to switch with Meredith Hammer, but then they switched it back and wanted to keep it the same because Meredith could not come at 6:50. So I'm not sure where Ms. Taylor is. Or we have Attorney Hernandez, Silver Hernandez next.
And I don't see. I'm trying to see where is Meredith is down to 8:20.
Right.
Okay, well, we didn't see how it goes, huh? Well, is nobody's there yet, Bob?
No, nobody's in the waiting room. Otherwise, I would let them
Yeah,
in.
because it's 6:59. I would think that Miss Hernandez might be.
Right. So we also have Howard Burke. Oh, here we have Claudia. She's here now. So let's let her in.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Lisa Taylor thinks she's coming in at 8:20.
She is, as I said. Anyway, who's Claudia? All right, just heard from Judge Tom Donnelly. He's in the Sullivan race. We also have Meredith Hamer. She has not joined us yet, but we are joined today at this time by Claudia Silva Hernandez. And I'm going to ask Claudia to unmute. And we have Alderman Brookins in the waiting room. So we'll shortly. So we're back on schedule.
All right, let's go.
Hi, Mr. Bahucha.
Hi, how are you, Claudia Silva Hernandez?
Good, how about yourself?
Good. We're wondering, is your camera not functioning, or are we not going to see you?
You know what? I had the same problem last time I tried to. It's let me see. Zoom is unable to detect a camera. Let me try getting in. Try turning on my phone again. I'm going to try logging on to my phone. Okay.
All right.
So,
So bear with us while we just have that slight technical difficulty. We'll have that straightened out shortly.
be right back.
In the meantime, as I mentioned, we have Brookings.
Oh, she left the room?
Yeah, she's gonna rejoin. So she's having some difficulty with her phone, as we noticed.
I don't know if she can hear us. I wonder, could we swap out and just do Brookings and then come back to her if she
That's
has
a
that
good
time?
All right,
That's a good idea.
that's a good idea. All right. Let's see.
From an Android user. I better be quiet, because I need your help one day.
Well, hello, Alderman. We're gonna put you on a little bit earlier. We had a little problem with Claudia Hernandez and her phone, so you don't mind starting now as opposed to 7:10?
I do not.
All right, then take it away, Alderman Carruthers.
All right, thank you, Bob. Hello, Alderman, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Good to see you, Alderman. And as you know, Alderman, thank you for joining the West Side Coalition PAC Judicial Forum. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Attorney Bob Galhotra and also Attorney Natalie House to moderate this session. So we're going to get right to it, Alderman, so we don't waste too much of your time, as we have about 15 candidates to talk to tonight. So I'll just start out, Alderman, by saying, could you please tell us about yourself by telling us what schools you attended, what college, law school, and why you're running for judge?
So I born and raised here in Chicago. I graduated from Vanderpool was grammar school. Went to Mendel Catholic High School. Later went to Southern Illinois University and Carbondale. Went to law school where I got a degree, a bachelor's of science and an associate of applied science in mortuary science and funeral service. I then went to Northern Illinois University College of Law in DeKalb. And graduated in 1988. So I have practiced for more than 33 years now. I've done cases in state court, federal court, bench trials, jury trials. I've done things from condemnation trials in Lake County for IDOT to murder trials at 26th Street to employment discrimination trials in federal court. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to be able to help and mentor several young attorneys and help them with their start. Many of them are judges now, like Steve Watkins, and Thaddeus Wilson, and Dominique Collins-Ross. I love to practice the law, and one of the advice that I got early on from some older heads in city council was, Howard, don't quit your day job because this job isn't promised to you. I kept that to heart, primarily because I love to practice the law, but it also kept me grounded with my ear to the ground as far as being able to see what everyday people go through in their everyday lives in a variety of settings, whether it was civil court, people not being able to afford proper representation for small claims court, and was quite frankly, in a cost-benefit analysis, it costs as much to represent somebody in a $10,000 case as it does in a $100,000 case. I think that I'm at the end of my career. I know when to say when, and now's the time to say when with respect to the city council. But to be on the bench and why I want to be a judge would allow me to have that opportunity to, one, do what I love, to help mentor people, to share my experience that I've learned in a variety of practices, but more importantly, also help those young lawyers, like many of the judges helped me practice my craft, hone in my craft to become the lawyer that I am.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman, I know you talked about trying many cases, juries, bench trials and so much. Could you quantify that? I mean, do you approximately know how many jury trials you've actually had, how many bench trials you've had? Any idea?
So the bench trials will be in the hundreds, if not thousands, because I've been a state attorney and public defender, started in traffic. I was trying cases every day as a public defender, well, pretty much every day as a public defender in traffic court. Jury trials, I would estimate that it's about 50 to maybe 70. As far as, yeah, and then since I have been out of the state attorney's office and the public defender's office, we still maintain a relatively heavy litigation trial calendar. So no, I never really kept tally, but it's bench and jury trials, even after I left the office, have been in the hundreds.
And one last question for me. Has most of that been in the state courts? Do you have any experience in the federal level?
Yeah, so I try to man that case, which is taking somebody across state lines for purposes, immoral purposes. They got, don't really get confused, I think it was Jack Dempsey with that, where he supposedly took a white woman across state lines and for immoral purposes. It's a man act case. I tried that in federal court with Steve Watkins. I tried employment discrimination. I've tried various police misconduct type cases in federal court. So yes, I've tried PI cases in state court jury. So literally, it hasn't been a type of case that I haven't tried, including contested divorces. I've tried, and even some contested bankruptcies in federal court.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Attorney Nellie House.
Good evening, Alderman Brookins. How are you this evening? It's good to see you.
I am good, but it is hot. So I mean, thank God I have 2 air conditioners, but the one upstairs where I am went out. So as soon as this is over, I'm going back downstairs.
I want to lodge my complaint. We didn't get a spring. It went straight from winter to summer in Chicago.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask, my question is have you been evaluated by the Bar Associations? If so, how were you rated by the evaluating Bar Association?
So the short answer is yes. The latest bar rating that came out was from the Chicago Bar Association, where I was rated qualified. I went through screening for the Alliance 3 years ago. And the only people who did not rate me or the scores were not valid were the Women's Bar Association, the Asian Bar Association, and the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I am waiting for the new results to come out now, but with respect to the others, I was rated, recommended and qualified. So far in this round of rating, I've gotten the Illinois State Bar Association, which found me recommended. I also have the Decalogue, which found me recommended. So I'm just sitting here literally waiting for the other. Now, because positive ratings technically last 4 years, I assume that I can say that I've been found qualified or recommended from gay and lesbian, Cook County Bar, the Black Women's Bar, everybody but the 3 I named. And I'm not looking at the list. And I know they just added one with respect to a Muslim bar, I believe it is. So I've never been rated by them. But I anticipate that I will be found qualified or recommended by everybody.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is do you feel, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated in sentence?
So while I spent most of my practice, because there's almost no such thing as a private prosecutor, although I have written appeals for the Illinois Public Prosecutor's Office, there is a balancing act in being fair. And with my eclectic diverse experience from one being profiled, arrested, and suing the city to being a victim of a crime. And so I know that many people want to paint us, and when I say us, politicians and African American politicians, in one broad stroke and put us in and, oh, you want to let everybody out. I want to be fair to everybody. As I sit in the basements with these Block Club presidents and people who are in our community that just want to get home safely, they're asking for more police. They're asking to lock people up. They're asking to push them off the corners. And even despite the fact that I had to bite my tongue and say, well, hey, they do have a First Amendment right to be there. I walk that line every day in my everyday life and balancing what is fair and just and what is best for the community. But I will always follow the law and remember, but for the grace of God, I don't know if you were practicing then, but I was at 13th in Michigan when A.C. Cunningham, who was then a new judge, was racially profiled, pushed up against the wall as a sitting judge and roughed up. And then they gave him that, oh, you look like somebody in a book that was wanted. So I know it can be me. And I wasn't just talking about this. I have been talking about these types of things since Ike and I started.
Thank you. My next question is do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible and detainer cases?
I believe so. And here goes another thing I did. So early on, I worked with Michael Pensack in the landlord-tenant unit. Also later on, I owned real estate, and I had people who did not pay me my rent, refused to get out. Lady was in one apartment. I evicted her from there. She moved in with the neighbor across the street. He moved out. I had to evict her from there too. So I think that you can be just and fair if you are even tempered and understand that you do have an obligation to follow the law. But also, even in following the law, there is times where you should use discretion in those issues in how you treat people in the landlord-tenant space.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to my co-host and colleague, Attorney Bob Coulter.
Well, Ron Brookins, how are you? Good to see you.
Good.
I remember A.C. Cunningham telling me that story himself, rest his soul. Do you feel, do you belong to any political and or civic organizations? I'm sure you're a member of the Democrat Party.
I guess, well, I technically had to resign as a committeeman for the 21st Ward once I filed my petition. But yes, I do. I am a member of Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm a member of Prince Hall Masonry, Western Consensory number 28. I'm a member of the Chicago Assembly. And that is about it. And several bar associations.
Alderman Brookings, has your campaign received any political endorsement? If so, can you list them or tell us all the labor endorsements you've also received?
So the CFL, $3.99, firefighters local 2, and there's somebody else out there. I just don't remember who it is.
All right. If you were endorsed by the coalition, will you be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover costs incurred by the coalition promoting the campaign for judge as well as our endorsements?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, Alderman. We really appreciate the time you've given us. Stay cool, and we wish you the best of luck.
Well, hey, it's good to see you all. Thank you very much, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Our next
Thank you.
candidate is Claudia Silva Hernandez. And Claudia, how are we doing now? How's the phone camera working? Are you ready?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It sounds like we're not going to get a camera though.
Oh, here I am.
Oh, perfect. Claudia, is it possible to turn your device 90 degrees so we can see you horizontally? So that it fills up the whole frame, because we're broadcasting this on YouTube, and that didn't do it, huh? All right. Well,
I did move it around.
yeah. I think you've got the screen lock thing where it also adjusts when you do that. So we'll leave it the way it was. Sorry about that, Claudia. Claudia, thank you for joining us. We're sorry we had a little problem with the order, and I'm sorry we had to do you after Alderman Brookins. But can you begin by telling us about yourself and what schools you attended, including college and law school, well, and also more importantly, why you're running for judge? I want to point out that Claudia Silva Hernandez is running in the Sullivan vacancy.
Sure, thank you so much. Today, my name is Claudia Silva Hernandez. I am a Sullivan vacancy. My name will appear on all Cook County ballots for anyone who's registered to vote in Cook County. Something I do want to emphasize that I'm not sure everyone understands is there is a primary in June. Early voting in the city of Chicago starts June 13th. Election day is June 28th. There are 3 of us, including myself in my race. The person who gets the most votes on election day or before election day is a person that will move on to the November election. So this is it. There's only one chance, and that's it. So as I stated, my name is Claudia Silva Hernandez. I am a child of Mexican immigrants from San Luis Potosí, Mexico. My parents came here in the 1970s. My father was a union boilermaker for 30 years till his retirement. And my mother has been a dentist in the Dalton, South Holland region for about the past 40 years. The schools that I attended the University of Illinois in Chicago. I majored in Latin American Studies and Spanish. From there, I went on to obtain a master's degree in history at the University of Illinois. And I worked for a few years in between at Morton College in Cicero, working with Latino immigrants, and at Inroads Chicago, where I helped students of color who were looking for corporate opportunities or internships. From there, I went on to law school at the University of Illinois College of Law in Champaign-Urbana. And since then, I've been focusing on working in environments where I get to really research issues of misconduct and prosecute issues of misconduct. So I've worked at places such as the Attorney Registration Disciplinary Commission, where we saw a variety of cases and a variety of complainants from citizens regarding attorneys who do things such as obtain retainer fees and never perform any work in exchange for the retainer fee.
For the sake of time, Attorney Silva Hernandez, can I just ask you just a series of quick questions so we can get through some of the questions? How long have you been practicing as an attorney?
So I've been practicing for over 15 years. And the reason why I want to become a judge is I feel like there's a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the judiciary, and I'm the change and the new voice that is needed on the judiciary. I want voters to understand that they have power and that they have agency, and the way that they can use their voice is by coming out to vote if they are dissatisfied with the judiciary.
All right, thank you. You were talking about your legal experience. You were talking about working for the ARDC and investigating claims of lawyers taking fees and not doing anything. Can you tell us about how many bench trials you've tried and how many jury trials you've tried, as well as if you've done any appellate work?
Sure. So my practice focused exclusively in government work. So I've done a lot of quasi administrative laws. So I worked at the Chicago Housing Authority. I prosecuted cases there at Chicago Housing Authority at Attorney Registration Hearing Commission. I've also worked in similar court settings with the state of Illinois. I was an administrative law judge where I presided over appeals and people who were appealing state of Illinois benefits that had been denied for during, especially during COVID. So that really helped.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you tell us if you've been evaluated by any of the bar associations at this point, and if so, what the results are?
I have not been evaluated by any of the bar associations. However, I am the candidate in my race that's endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor. I'm also endorsed by LIUNA, the Labor's International Union of North America. They represent all the construction workers, city of Chicago and beyond. I'm also endorsed by the Iowa Workers Local 1, and this week, exciting, I also got an endorsement from the Chicago Firefighters Union. So I have strong union background, strong union.
Yes, we actually have a question about endorsements that I think you've covered it. But my question, I just want to make sure we understand. You were not evaluated for the bars by the bar associations because you didn't appear before them, or you appeared before them and you're waiting for results still?
So, Mr. Alberta, as you know, the bar associations are optional. I chose not to appear before them because
Okay.
the law has exclusively focused on government experience and quasi judicial practice. But as I stated, I have experience with.
Okay. I think my co-host may have some questions for you. So thank you, Ms. Silver Hernandez. I'll turn it over to them.
Yes.
Correct. Hello, how are you, Attorney Silver Hernandez? Thank you so much for participating in our judicial forum this evening. We're very happy to have you. I do have a couple of questions for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Alderman Ike Carruthers. But my first question for you is what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
Sure, most definitely. Being out in the campaign trail, especially in communities of color, such as the South Suburbs, where I went to gather a lot of my signatures. I've heard from a lot of people that their vote doesn't matter, that judges are not nice people, that judges are out of touch with the community, and so I personally think that that's very alarming. So what I will do, and what I've done in my own life, I try to be as humble as possible and connect with people as much as possible in my own personal life, and I will bring that to the bench. I'm very respectful. When I was at the Chicago Housing Authority, one of the administrative law judges that I appeared before, who is now a judge, I really admired the way he led his hearings, which is he's very respectful of all the litigants being before him. He always gave everyone a voice and a fair shot, and everyone always left the hearings feeling like they had been heard. Even though he may not have always found in their favor, he definitely made everyone feel respected and heard. And that's something I definitely want to bring to the bench. I want to listen to litigants. I want them to feel like there's a person who mirrors them and their experiences and their communities on the bench.
Very good. Now, my next question to you is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible entertainer cases?
I definitely can. I think that as a judge, our role is to be partial and fair and to approach each case individually, and definitely with some of my own legal experiences. I've had to deal with cases where unfortunate situations have happened, but you have to still look at things independently and from the lens of what does the law dictate that we have to do in this case, even though there might have been a tragic outcome, or even though someone might lose their housing and not have somewhere to live, what is, or some landlord's not going to pay their rent, for example, what does the law dictate, or what are the facts of this specific situation dictate that it should happen?
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. And I think for our next question, you have you told us about your political endorsements, but do you belong to any political or civic organizations? And if so, please list what organizations you belong to, any leadership roles that you had in those organizations.
Sure, I belong to the Hispanic Lawyers Association of Illinois. I belong to my local community organization. It's called the GAP organization. So the GAP is a four block historic district within Bronzeville on the south side of Chicago. I'm very active in our GAP community organization. I was previously a secretary. And I also volunteer heavily in Humboldt Park neighborhood, feeding the homeless once a week.
Okay, very good. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alderman Ike Carruthers. He's going to ask the last couple of questions. Thank you. Ike, are you there, Alderman Carruthers? If not, I'll finish it up.
All right, no, I'm muted, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hi, Attorney Hernandez, how are you? Good to see you again.
Hi, Mr.
Hi.
Bush.
So, actually, there's not a lot of questions left. I would like to certainly give my regards to your sister, who we all know is a sitting judge. She was fortunate enough, I believe, around the polls, so that makes it a little bit easier for some folk and around the polls. But actually, there's only one final question that we kind of ask all of the candidates, and that is, if your campaign is endorsed, your candidacy is endorsed by the coalition, would you be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover all costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
Oh, absolutely. And as you mentioned, my sister is a sitting judge, and however, they have very strict rules and not involved in that at all. But yes,
Well, I hope she votes for you. So
I would hope so. But
Sibling rivalry is something
all
else.
right.
What is your sister's name?
I'm sorry.
What is your sister's name? So she's
Her name is Rosa Silva. I am running under Claudia Silva Hernandez.
Oh, Rosa and I went to high school together. I don't want to date myself, but we were our freshman class together. Yeah. Oh, small world. See, so we have met each other. See?
I think I supervised Rosa just for a little bit.
Yes, I know, Mr. Gallagher, you were at the public defender's office too.
Okay. All
Thank you
right.
so much for joining us, Ms. Silva Hernandez, and we wish you all the luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, our next candidate is Monica Somerville. Ms. Somerville is connecting to audio, and take it away, Alderman.
Okay.
This is in the Diane Cannon vacancy.
Okay, all righty. Hello, Attorney Somerville, how are you?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, on behalf of the West Side Coalition PAC, I'd like to thank you for joining our judicial forum. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Attorney Natalie House and Attorney Bob Gahotra. This is not our first rodeo. We've done this at least 4 or 5 sessions. For the first time that we've done it actually in a virtual platform. So we're going to get right to it. Could you please tell us, Counselor, about yourself by telling us what schools you attended, college, law school, and the big question of why you are running for judge?
Okay, so as you know, I'm Monica Somerville. I'm running for judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County countywide. I'm running for the Gordon Cannon vacancy. I attended Loyola University. I graduated in 1985. I attended John Marshall Law School. I graduated in 1989. I am running for judge because, first of all, I want to make a difference. I have worked in public service my entire legal career. I think we need to bring competence back to the judiciary. We need diversity. We need good judges who are going to be fair, objective, and judges who follow the law. So that is the reason why I am running for judge.
Okay. Could you tell us something about your legal experience, where you work, what type of law have you practiced, and how many years you've been practicing?
Okay, so I have been an attorney for 31 years. It'll be 32 years in October. I have a very diverse legal background and trial experience. I have worked for the city, state, and federal, state, and federal government. I started off at the City of Chicago as an assistant corporation counsel. I started in one of the entry-level positions, handling traffic cases and housing matters. I went on to the torts division, handling property damage cases, and I handled trip and fall cases all the way up to wrongful death cases. I also worked for the Illinois Department of Employment Security as an administrative law judge. I worked 4 years as an administrative law judge hearing unemployment cases. I was a supervising administrative law judge where I oversaw eight administrative law judges. I worked for the U.S. Postal Service, working as an attorney handling employment discrimination cases before EEOC and the Merit System Protection Board. I also worked at the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, where I would prosecute attorneys for ethical misconduct. I was the Director of Workers' Compensation, Police and Fire Claims for the City of Chicago, where I oversaw the entire workers' comp program. I was managing in-house and outside litigation, giving the attorney settlement authority, very engaged in settlement conferences. I also was responsible for determining the compensability for the workers' comp cases, in addition to police and fire claims. With the police and fire claims, I worked with Local 2, which is the fire department, and also FOP, where I would meet with them regularly to mediate the medical claims. I also worked as a deputy director in the finance department for the City of Chicago, overseeing accounts receivable and also citation administration. In that role, I oversaw the operations in that department. I had about 30 employees that reported to me. So I would deal with all of the administrative hearing cases with the City of Chicago. So as you can see, my experience is very diverse. And in the role as deputy director, I also dealt with all of the Freedom of Information Act cases. You know, whenever there were requests for Freedom of Information Act, I supervised the employee who would obtain that information and provide it. As the deputy director of finance, I also dealt with all of the contract issues with the various vendors. So as you can see, I have a lot of experience, very diverse experience, litigation experience, as well as legal experience.
Okay. All right. On that note, I think I want to turn it over to my colleague Nellie House. Thank you.
Hello, Attorney Somerville. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I have a couple of questions for you. My next question that I would have for you is, have you been evaluated by the bar associations? If so, how were you rated by those bar associations?
Yes, I've been evaluated by the Alliance. In addition to, I've been evaluated by the Chicago Bar Association. I was found qualified by the Chicago Bar Association. With the Alliance, I was found either qualified or recommended by all of the bar associations except for Illinois State Bar Association. I was found not qualified because they said I didn't have any recent trial experience. As I stated, for the past 15 years, I have been in a managerial role. So the last case that I tried was in 2009. The Women's Bar found me not recommended or qualified.
Thank you. And my next question for you is, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
One of the things that I would do is, first of all, as I'm out campaigning, one of the things that I do hear from a lot of people is, they feel as soon as they walk into the courtroom that they feel like they're being judged, that they're already convicted before they've even, presented their case. And one of the things that I'm going to do differently is that I will not have a formed opinion, that I will listen to all of the people, no matter who they are, their backgrounds. I will listen to the evidence. I will not make any judgments or opinions about them. And my decisions will be based on the facts of the case, and I will apply it to the law. So that's what I'm going to do differently, because that is what I am hearing from people as I'm out campaigning. People want to be treated fairly. They want judges who are unbiased, and they want to be respected, and they want to be heard. And that is something that I'm going to do differently when I become a judge.
Very good, thank you. My next question that I have for you is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible entertainer cases?
So, judges, like anyone else, are human beings who, judges are just like anyone else. And judges have to make sure that they are open-minded. If you are a judge who is a landlord, you have to be mindful, and I think that all judges have this unconscious bias or implicit bias, but you have to be able to set that aside. You have to be able to set that aside. If you're a landlord, you cannot be evaluating the case based on your personal opinion. You need to be listening to the person that's before you, both litigants, and you have to be fair to them. So as long as the judge, no matter if he is a landlord, if he can listen to the evidence and be fair to the parties, to the landlord or someone on the other side, I think you can be fair. But you have to be mindful of your own personal bias and be able to put that aside, because I think that as human beings, we all have that unconscious implicit bias, but you have to be mindful of it and put it aside when you're on the bench hearing these cases.
Okay, very good. My next question would be do you belong to any political and or civic organizations? And if so, if you can list those organizations for us and any leadership roles that you've held in.
So I've been involved in a lot of community organizations throughout my legal career. I have been involved in my community, the Beverly Area Planning Association, the Beverly Arts Center. I was on the auxiliary board. I was also in the Ridge Historical Society as a docent. I have served on Cook County Bar Association as the Director of Professionalism. I am currently on the Chicago Bar Association as a mentor in the Lawyers Lend a Hand to the Youth, where I tutor a third grader. I also am involved in the CBA in the Lawyer to Lawyer Mentoring Program. So those are the organizations that I'm involved in. And the other thing that, in my community, my husband and I started South Cook Jaguars, which is a basketball program for the youth. There was a need for that kind of program in our community. We started in 2012. It's very successful. So those are some of the things that I've been involved in. And one of the other committees I was on the Supreme Court Committee on Character and Fitness. I was the vice chair of that committee. So I have been very active in the community, the legal community, and those are the organizations that I've been involved in.
Very good, very impressive. Has your campaign received any political endorsements? If so, if you could please detail those endorsements and please include any labor or union endorsements.
So I've been endorsed by the Bricklayers Union the Iron Workers Union. I've been endorsed by David Moore. I've been endorsed by Chris Talaferro. I've been endorsed by Rayne Lopez. I've been endorsed by the independent voters of Illinois. So those are the organizations that I have been endorsed by at this point.
As
If I could jump in, Natalie, you're referring to the aldermen of those particular wards, Attorney Somerville?
Yes.
Right, let me make sure. Okay.
Oh, very good. Those are impressive group of individuals. If my last question for you, and this is the last question from the coalition, is if you are endorsed by the coalition, would you be willing to pay the $250 fee to the coalition in order to cover the cost to endorse your campaign?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anybody else does, but that is.
I don't think Bob, did you have anything?
No, I don't. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best of luck in your campaign.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I really appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
next candidate is Elizabeth Ryan. I'm going to let Ms. Ryan in. I don't know Ms. Ryan.
Hi,
There she is.
how are you?
Hello, Attorney Ryan. How are you? All right, Natalie, please.
Certainly. Good evening, Attorney Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are the West Side Coalition. We are made up of communities within the 7th Illinois Congressional District. And we're evaluating all of the judges that are running countywide, as well as the judges that are running in the 11th and the 7th sub-circuits. So I understand that you are running countywide, and so we have a series of questions that we are asking all of the candidates this evening. So thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
Our first question is if you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself, include things such as what college and law school you attended, and why you were running for judge.
Okay. I am Elizabeth Ryan. I'm running countywide. I attended University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana for undergrad, and then graduated from DePaul College of Law on night school. And I worked full-time at DePaul. I am from the south side of Chicago, and I now live on the northwest side of Chicago. I've been found qualified by all the bar associations because I've spent my entire legal career in the courtroom, first as a judicial clerk in the Chancery Division of Cook County, and then I've been working as a trial attorney ever since, advocating on behalf of the mentally ill, the injured, and the disabled. I now live on the northwest side. I have 4 girls. You might hear them in the background. I apologize. We just came back from a t-ball game, but I'm involved in my community. I coach cheerleading and basketball, and I also served on the school board. I'm also very involved in Marillac St. Vincent, an organization located on the near north side and the west side of Chicago. And I want to become a judge because I've seen firsthand how sometimes decisions can be made, and there's gray areas there, and there's a little room for compassion sometimes. Of course, you apply the law fairly, but a lot of my clients are in situations where a decision might seem not like a big deal for us, but for them it changes the course of their lives. So I'm really feel like my experience in the type of law that I've practiced has given me the tools necessary to be compassionate. So that's why I'm running. Yeah.
Thank you. So, very good. How long have you been practicing law?
19 years.
And you indicated that you're a trial attorney. You work in the mental health field. So how many, if you can just detail or quantify for us, like how many trials have you done? How many jury trials have you done?
Through my whole career?
Yes.
Let's see, probably 15. Yeah, around 15. I co-chaired a lot early on. Of course, when I started, I did a lot of med mal work. And so that's how I learned. I worked at a law firm, and the attorney there trained me on how to properly do a jury trial. And then it started to give me a little more independence, and I started to do my own kind of smaller cases and work my way up. But yeah, I've gotten to the point where I'm happy the jury trials are back, because I kind of miss them in a weird way. It disrupts your life completely, but
Yeah.
I kind of miss that. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So now, have you been evaluated then by the bar associations, and if so, how were you rated from those bar associations?
I was found recommended and qualified by all 13.
All right, very good. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Honorable Alderman Ike Carruthers. He's got the next set of questions that we're asking all of our candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. Hello, Attorney Ryan. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
As I'm out and about at different places, I see you out and about as well. There's a couple of things. So do you belong to any political or civic organization?
Let's see. I was a member of the 39th Ward Dems for about 2 years. So that was, for about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any civic involvement, any organization civically you've been involved with?
Miralax St. Vincent, we have their.
Oh, you didn't highlight that.
Yeah, that's tomorrow night. And then I'm very involved with Misericordia in our area.
Okay. And has your campaign received any political endorsements?
Yes.
Could you outline those for us?
Sure.
Or is it some, not necessarily all of them, just give us some.
Oh, okay. So I have the endorsement of, I'm from the 19th Ward. So I have the endorsement of Matt O'Shea, and also the endorsement of my home ward, Alderman Samantha Nugent. I also have the support from Ariel Verbues, Felix Cardona, Alderman Chris Talaferro, and State Rep Kelly Burke, John D'Amico, who's retired now. I also have the support of, I'm trying to recall, I have a lot of union support. So the Carpenters Union, the Plumbers Union, Iron Workers, the Fire, the Italian Police, and the support of the Polish American Police Association, the Hellenic Voters.
Is that local too? For the firefighters, is that local too?
Yes. And then I have various other elected officials that are listed on my website.
Okay. All right, very good. We'll turn over to Attorney Halter to kind of close us out.
All right, Attorney Ryan, your website's on our YouTube broadcast, so I just want you to know that. We have just a couple other questions. One of them is, what will you do differently to ensure that Africans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
I'm sorry, can you repeat? It kind of got a little bit blurry.
Sure, I'll repeat it.
Sentence.
What will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
Okay, so the 99% of my clients are African American, I would say, and I've seen firsthand, the struggles that they face through the legal system. I'm usually up against huge insurance companies with multiple attorneys, and it's usually just me and my client. So I know that things aren't always fair, and I think having that perspective, and then in being on the bench, I think will serve me to be a fair and compassionate judge. But my experience is primarily in the civil area of law. So I haven't had much criminal law experience. So I am hopeful that if I do win and if I am assigned somewhere, it will be most likely in the civil division because that's where my 19 years of experience has been.
Well, I'm sure you started traffic. I think everybody starts.
Right.
You cut your teeth saying guilty and not guilty.
Right.
But, let me ask you another question, Attorney Ryan, and that is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible detainer cases?
Oh, I don't know. I think there may be some conflict there. Maybe in that instance, it would be a good idea to recuse yourself or, I believe that you can put things aside and be fair and apply the law fairly. But maybe that's an interesting question, but maybe in that predicament, that would be a situation where maybe you'd recuse yourself.
All right, and then finally, we have one concluding question, and that is, if you're endorsed by the coalition, will you be willing to pay the $250 fee in order to cover costs incurred by the coalition to promote the endorsed candidates?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, we want to thank you for waiting in our waiting room. I know it's not blue, and there's no snacks and there's no refreshments. But we thank you nevertheless.
I appreciate you doing the Zoom. This is my first night home, so thank you. This is great.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next candidate is Judge Rayne Mitchell, who is running in the vacancy created by Sheldon Harris's announcement that he's retiring, or he's already retired, I believe. Has he already retired? Yes, right? Okay, so let's bring in Judge Mitchell, and let me rename Judge Mitchell when Judge Mitchell comes in.
And he's running for the appellate court.
Yes, the appellate court, first district. All right.
I apologize. Mute.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for waiting in our waiting room, Judge. We don't have any snacks, and there's no refreshments, so it really kind of is not the ideal place, but we thank you for hanging in there and waiting for us. I am changing your name from Chancery Court Division to Judge Ray Mitchell. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, that's great. That's and just Ray is fine. I'm judge in the courtroom, but outside of that, everybody just calls me Ray. And
we want to thank you for joining us on the West Side Coalition, our PAC, our Political Action Committee, and we want to thank you for joining us. So I'm going to turn over the questioning to Ms. Howe.
Good evening, Judge Ray or Ray. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are asking all of the candidates the same questions from the coalition. And so our first question that we have this evening is just, we want you to tell us about yourself. Tell us what college and law school you attended and why you are running for the appellate court.
sure. I'm a lifelong Chicagoan. I grew up on the southwest side in the Morgan Park community, 109th and Bell. I graduated from Brother Rice High School in 1987. And from there, I community college at Loyola. And then I went to Loyola Law School. At my very last year of law school, I did at the University of Chicago Law School. So my whole education has been here in the city. And then I clerked for some judges after law school and later worked at Winston & Strawn. And I was lucky enough to be appointed judge in 2008. And had the very good fortune of meeting your uncle when I was a new judge in traffic court, and I had to run, and then Judge House came down and through a mutual friend gave me some very good advice on what you need to do to run and the work you need to do, and I was elected luckily in 2010, retained in 2016. So I've been a judge almost 14 years and have served the people in that capacity. And I believe that the time has come for me to take that experience and take it to a new position to the appellate court. And that's, I didn't go, this is a question some people have asked, I didn't go to first sighting in the fall. And the reason I didn't go is I have a friend of 30 years, a law school classmate of mine, who frankly, if those other candidates were paying attention, she had the slating locked up last summer, and that's Dominic Ross. And I said I wasn't gonna go. I had no interest in running against Dominic, and that's kind of how it shaped up. And then this late vacancy occurred, and it really was an opportunity that presented itself. And I'm quite proud to say that in 10 days' time, with the help of some of the folks on here, we managed to collect 23,000 signatures. And we filed on the first day, the only candidate to do that. And that took a lot of organization, hard work, and people.
Great leadership too. That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you can, and just for clarification purposes, I assume you're talking about Justice Nathaniel House Jr.
Yes, now just.
He is my brother. He is my older brother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He is my brother. Yeah, so that's fine. No, that's fine. People assume, yeah.
Oh, well, you look so young. I thought.
I'm glad for recording this. I love it. So, anyway, so if you can, just tell us a little bit more about, your experience as you said you worked at Winston and Strawn. Tell us a little bit more about your legal experience and how long you've been practicing law and that sort of thing.
Sure. So I practiced law before going on the bench 15 years, and the bulk of that time was at Winston and Strawn. I left a partner in the firm. I'd say half my time was as an associate at the firm, and then it was there about 11 years. I was like 5.5 years as an associate, 5.5 years as a partner. And actually, interestingly enough, the focus of my practice was as an appellate lawyer. I handled a lot of appeals, including George Ryan's appeal, his criminal case. I briefed that case. I wrote the cert petition. And so it really was a varied practice. I did just a little bit of criminal work, but most of my practice was civil. But it really ran the gamut in terms of, sort of bread and butter commercial law issues. And so when I was, after I was elected, Judge Evans was good enough to assign me to the law division. And it just happened that there was a vacancy in the commercial calendar. It was Lee Preston's vacancy. And he had gone on to the Chancery Division. And it was perfect because it suited my background. They were primarily business disputes. And that was a great experience. And then after I was there for about 6 years, I then moved on to the Chancery Division, where I've been since November of 2017.
Well, that's fantastic. So have you been evaluated yet for the appellate court by the bar associations? And if so, how have you been rated?
Right. So I went through the Alliance. I was interviewed by the Alliance 2 weeks ago. I've been found highly qualified by the ISBA, and today I was found highly recommended by the Decalogue Society. The other bar associations are outstanding, and the CBA has had the materials the same length of time as the Alliance, and yet I don't have an interview date yet. So I'm waiting to hear from them. I sent them just a friendly reminder on Friday saying, if you need anything else from me, please.
I like so nudge, right?
Right.
Okay. And then I just have one last question for you. And that is, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are treated fairly and sentenced fairly? I know that's a different role for the appellate court, but if you can just maybe just talk about that issue a little bit in your experience with it. Doesn't sound like you have much experience with it in the civil division, but if you can.
What I will say is what I said to some folks today who were supportive of my candidacy, and they were folks that had cases before me in the past. They said, you've always treated us fair. And my response to that was there is no higher compliment that you can pay a judge than to say you were fair. Not that I'm always going to rule your way. Not that I am always going to get it right. That's why we have appeals courts, and that's why we have a Supreme Court. But that I'm going to take the time to listen. There's a wonderful Latin phrase. It's at the back of the courtroom in the Illinois Supreme Court. All the justices can see it when they're on the bench, and they actually felt so strongly about it that when they built out the new courtroom in the old state of Illinois building up here, the Supreme Court courtroom, they included it. And it's, I'm going to not do service to the Latin, but it's Audi Parterum Partum. And I'm not pronouncing it right, I'm sure, but it translates as hear the other side, right? And that is, I think, the command that every judge has. Keep an open mind and hear what the other side, what they have to say. I am blessed in the Chancery Division to have two young law clerks that work with me, young lawyers who help me draft opinions. I've written over 1,000 opinions in my judicial career. And I stress this, that we write the opinion, not for the winning side. The winning side knows why they won, but it's for the losing side. It's for the side that didn't win. We need them to know that we heard their argument. We may not have agreed with it, but often we respectfully disagree. But to make it known to them that they were heard, and that's such a critical component, particularly in civil law. Our orders, they inevitably depend upon voluntary compliance. We don't have enough sheriffs in Cook County to go out and enforce the orders that our civil law judge. It's because the lawyers and their clients have faith in the system. And anyway, that's my answer. A little long-winded, but I would continue to do what I have been doing, and that is to say to be the very best judge that I can be.
Okay, very good. Next question from the PAC is that, do you feel that city judges who are landlords can give a just ruling enforceable entertainer cases?
So the question is a judge who is a landlord,
Right.
can you rule? I wouldn't think that would be per se a disqualification, but what I would say is it's certainly something that should be disclosed. I'm a big believer in, I err on the side of disclosure. If there's ever a question, and that way, if the sometimes I'll say to part, I had this came up a few weeks ago. My election lawyer their firm had a case before me, and the next time the case was up, I made the disclosure. Look, I think I can be fair and impartial. They put together my petition,
Right.
but if any party in the case, primarily outside, if you're in any way, or your client's any way uncomfortable, I'll step off the case. Gave it a short date, came in, stepped off the case, not a problem. They don't have to burn a change on something like that. We have a lot. One of the great things about Cook County is the fact that we have, believe it or not, 400 judges. And this isn't like being downstate, where if a judge recuses himself or steps off a case, it means the parties have to travel 30 or 40 miles over to the next county to find a judge.
Right.
We have hundreds of judges in the building who are perfectly capable to hear the case.
Right, exactly. Very good. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to someone I think you may know, Alderman Ike Brothers. He's going to ask you the balance of the questions.
Great. Okay, thank you. Alderman, good to see you.
He doesn't have a real phone. He has an Android. He doesn't use real.
You know what? That's just nothing.
Oh.
I was muted. I'm sorry.
Hard to unmute on those Android phones. So.
I'm telling you, I might have to take her pro se to court about these allegations against Android phones. How are you, Your Honor? You doing okay?
I'm doing well.
Good to see you again. I have to date myself. I admit that I recall when you first ran for judge.
Yes.
Going back a few years, so there's no question about that. But I am going to try to move expeditiously because my colleague, Attorney House, sometimes she kind of does like a filibuster thing, and it kind of burns up a lot of time. But at any rate, I'd just like to ask you this, has your campaign received any political or union endorsements?
Yes, I've been endorsed by, Senate President John Cullerton, retired. Alderman Matt O'Shea of the 19th Ward Democratic Organization, the Illinois AFL-CIO, the Chicago Federation of Labor, the Chicago Firefighters Union Local 2, Chicago Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7, the Chicago Plumbers, Local 130. I know I'm leaving some out, but we've had tremendous union support.
Okay, that's great to know that. And let me see what else I have here, because I don't really want to take too much time to see political endorsements. Actually, and you gave labor endorsements. The only other question that I would have, and let Bob have something, is if your campaign was endorsed by this body, would you be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover all costs incurred, or not cover all, but to assist in covering all costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
Absolutely. We all know that manning polling places, getting signatures, this is hard work, and so of course whatever I can do to help meet expenses, I'm happy to do.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Judge Mitchell, there was one question that we were asking our appellate court candidates. So that question is, how many times have you been reversed by the appellate court? If you've been reversed, what were the reasons stated for the reversal? I think one of the candidates previously who's running in the appellate court race, he gave us a reversal figure or affirmance rate. I think that's the way a lot of jurists refer to it, as an affirmance rate. I was wondering, do you have that handy by any chance?
I do.
Excellent.
I do. I think I do. Shouldn't say I do. I'm happy to provide you by way of supplement, because this was a question of my alliance. And what I do is I have a table of every case that I've ever heard. And I hadn't calculated my affirmance rate. They told me in that meeting that it was around 90%. I know I've had, I want to say it was 8 or 9 reversals, outright reversals, out of, how many do I have?
I think you referred to it as almost thousands of cases.
Well, thousands of opinions, but I want to say there was 120 some appeals, and wouldn't you know, I had written all these notes down for the Alliance interview on this very topic, and I don't have them here with me. I apologize for that. I'm happy to supplement with that.
That's fine. For the sake of time, feel free to supplement that if you have that.
Well, what I can say is, there were 8 or 9 where I was reversed outright. There was a number where I was reversed in part, affirmed in part. The vast majority were affirmances, but I don't know if this is like Jeopardy and you have a daily double. There were 3 or 4 instances where the appellate court reversed me only to have the trial judge vindicated by the Supreme Court that reinstated my original judgment. So,
All right.
All right.
Thank you for that added level. Thank you for that added level of precision in your answer. We appreciate it very much, and we thank you for joining us, and we wish you good luck.
I do appreciate your efforts, and you know, it's a tough thing. I appreciate you taking the time, because it's so tough for judicial candidates, and it's always great when people are engaged and have lots of smart questions, and it's you know, the law geeks love to talk law. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Jacqueline Marie Griffin. I'm going to let her in. All right. And Natalie, I'm going to make you host at this point, too. So
That works.
all right. I recognize that background.
Hi, sorry. I was trying to change it before we got on, but it wouldn't let me.
That's how much.
It's on the rooftop.
She uses that in her personal Zooms, I'm sure, as well. Her personal.
You got to go on the 5th floor of the parking garage to get that shot.
I'm not the most tech savvy, so once it's up, it's there for good.
Okay. Hello, Attorney Griffith. Welcome to the West Side Coalition PAC Judicial Evaluation Forum. We appreciate you participating this evening. We are running a little bit behind, so I hope hope that we seem a little short. It's only because we're trying to catch up and we have other candidates that are waiting. But we are asking all of the candidates the same questions about their reasons why they're running and that sort of thing. So if you can, please succinctly tell us why you are running for judge and tell us a little bit about your background, including what college you went to and your law school.
Okay. I am running for judge because I have been a public servant my entire legal career. I joined the State's Attorney's Office in 2005, and I am currently in the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Unit, working with survivors of sex assaults and families that have domestic violence issues. I attended Illinois State University, and I received a criminal justice degree and a political science degree. I went to UIC, formerly known as John Marshall Law School, and I am hoping to become a judge in Cook County because I want to continue to help the people and serve the people of this great county.
Okay, very good. So I know you work for the State's Attorney's Office. Have you worked there for the balance of your legal practice? And if you can, tell us just about the work that what divisions you worked in the State's Attorney's Office.
I began in the Child Support Enforcement Division, and then I moved on to the Juvenile Justice Division, where we practice balanced and restorative justice with juvenile delinquents, as well as worked on the child abuse and neglect side. From there, I went to the Branch 66 and the grand jury. I also was on felony review, where we reviewed cases for felony charges, assessing the credibility of witnesses and determining if charges should be pursued or with obviously the person in custody. From there, I went to the Markham Courthouse, where I was a third chair and began doing trials in the felony trial division. And then for the past 5 years, I've been in the sexual assault domestic violence division as a trial specialist. And I have a unique position where I also do not only criminal jury trials, but I also do civil jury trials because I am the person in our office who handles the sexually violent persons statute. So if a case comes in, it's actually under civil law. So I actually have a unique balance of both criminal and civil law.
Oh, very good. Now, have you been evaluated by the bar associations? And if so, how are you rated by those reviewing bar associations?
Yes, I was evaluated by the bar associations. I was found qualified by the ISBA, the CBA, the Chicago Council of Lawyers, the Hispanic Bar Association, Cook County Bar Association recommended me, Arab American, Asian American. Pretty much I got almost all good ratings.
All right, very good, very good. You said you got all good ratings. Were there any, did you get any, have you gotten all your ratings back from all the reviewing bar associations?
Yes, I did. I did have two not recommendations. The Decalogue Society and the Lagbacks found me not recommended, but the rest found me recommended or qualified.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Our fourth question is what we're asking is what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
I will, obviously my career within the State's Attorney's Office has exposed me to all types of people and walks of life, and I've lived in the city my entire life. So I would, ensure that there is fairness and equality amongst all of the people involved, especially, I think, working in sexual assault and domestic violence. We're working with interpersonal violence victims where the offenders are often family members and they need to be they still love and obviously care about the people, and we try to help them to become, work on their issues and, stuff like that.
Okay. Our next question is do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible and detainer cases?
Sitting judges who are landlords?
Yes.
I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't imagine if you're a landlord and you would be ruling on such issues that you would be able to give a fair and just, because you probably would have a stake in it, I would assume.
Right. Okay, very good. Thank you, Attorney Griffin. I'm going to turn it over now to my co-host, Ike Carruthers. Please be patient with him. He is having technical difficulties. He has a phone from 1989.
Don't believe that, Counsel. I would like to follow up Attorney Griffin on that question regarding the landlord situation, because you said you would probably have a stake in that. I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Or did you really understand? The issue was, could a sitting judge be fair and impartial if they themselves were a landlord and they were sitting in the courtroom regarding forceful detainers? So, and I heard you say they might have a stake in that. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I meant, I actually, when I was in law school, was part of the Fair Housing Clinic at John Marshall, formerly known as John Marshall UIC. But I think that if someone, I would imagine that all judges obviously should be fair and impartial, and that is why they try to attain that status. But if my understanding was if they were a sitting judge and were actually a landlord of the property, but if they were just landlords of other property, I guess it would have to be the same as any judge. You are sworn to be impartial. Now, I don't know if that's always the case.
Right, I get it. They help me with a little bit of clarity. So moving on to another question. Could you outline your community service? If you've been involved in community service, or are you involved in any boards or anything like that?
Yes, I am actually a Girl Scout troop leader. I have a 8-year-old daughter, and we started a Girl Scout troop in our community, and it actually grew to pretty fast to be 20 kids. So I do that. I also coach t-ball and soccer for our church, and I'm very active in our church and our school doing that. I also do obviously other things involving domestic violence through work. I am a participant in Lawyers in the Classroom, where we go to teach kids constitutional law in middle schools. I have also done a pre-prom lecture, which we are starting back up now that COVID is over, where we go to high school students and talk to them about sexual assault and consent, and inform them of the law and what you should and shouldn't do to hopefully prevent any kind of problems for them in the future.
Okay, well, you mentioned the Girl Scouts, so maybe think about the thin mint cookies and the butternut cookies. So it's always a big hit, the Girl Scout cookies.
Yes, we just finished cookie season.
Okay, and so do you belong to any, or maybe you did answer that, in terms of political organization? Are you affiliated with any political organizations?
Not really. I mean, I'm a participant of like the Ending Violence Against Women. It's called a VOWI, and things like through my position in the State Attorney's Office with sexual assault and domestic violence, but no other outside political organizations.
Okay. All right, well, good. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to the county attorney, Bob Hunter.
Yeah, I don't know if Bob back, if he's not back.
Yes, hello, ASA Griffin. Thanks for joining us. My question has to do with political endorsements. Have you received any political endorsements? And if so, can you detail which ones, and also whether or not they are any labor organization?
Unfortunately, I only have received so far the Chicago Firefighters Local 2 endorsement. I have been reaching out to other organizations to get additional endorsements, but that is the only one I have received.
And if you are endorsed by the coalition, will you be willing to pay the $250 fee in order to cover costs incurred for promoting our judicially endorsed candidates?
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you waiting in our waiting room.
Thank you for being with Becky, and I worked together in the State Attorney's Office, and she was a fantastic partner. Fantastic partner.
You were a great partner too.
Thank you. Good luck to you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'm going to allow Meredith Hammer in. We had scheduled her at 6:50. I think there was some confusion about the schedule. There may have been some change with the Michelle Taylor I apologize on behalf of the coalition for the mix-up if there was one. But at this time, I'm going to let Meredith Hammer in. She was running in the Sullivan vacancy. As I said, there was a mix-up in the schedule, so we'll let her in, and then as soon as that happens, we'll return to our schedule with Dan Bellinoff and Yolanda Harris-Sayre and Lisa Michelle Taylor. So at this time, Attorney Hammer.
She's Indiana.
All right, I'm not sure. I think Attorney Hammer just needs to put her camera on.
My camera on, sorry. How are you?
Well, hello, thank you for joining us. I apologize on behalf of the committee for any confusion as to the time slots. There were a lot of emails sent and I may have mixed up something, so thank you for joining us. And I appreciate the understanding of all the who are in the waiting room. Natalie, would you like to begin?
Oh, yeah, welcome. Hello, Attorney Hammer. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining this evening with the West Side Coalition, PAC, or Judicial Forum. We are asking all of the judicial candidates the same set of questions regarding their candidacy for judge. And our first question is we're asking each candidate to tell us a little something about themselves, including telling us what college and law school they went to, and most importantly, tell us why you're running for judge.
So I'm Meredith Hammer, been an attorney for over 20 years. I practice primarily in areas of probate, trust and estates planning. I do real estate law, quiet title and the like. Contract disputes, future contracts on the civil side of the house. Law school, I've been in law school over 20 years ago. I'm trying to remember. I went to IU Law in Indianapolis in the evenings while I worked full time. My undergrad is in computer science and software development, so I have a software development background. And I come from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here right now with my parents' home, visiting my dad, who is 84 years old, and I love him dearly.
Oh, that's very sweet. So, and tell us why you're running for judge.
Public service. I've been a long public servant. I care about people, wanting to help people. I went to law school to help people. I felt like if I knew the laws, I could help people, help my community. I believe that the judiciary is the highest form of public service in our court system, and I want to do more of that. Just going to the next level and becoming, a public servant and helping people, all people who come into my courtroom. I'm a respecter of persons, whether it's gender, race, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation. I respect people and I care about people. That's why I mentioned my daddy. I was raised well. I was well loved. We lost my mama a couple years ago, but we miss her dearly. But we're a family. I believe in families and protecting families and building and protecting generational wealth. And one of the second reasons is to inspire little young girls to follow their dreams.
Okay, very good. So can you tell us about your legal practice and your legal experience? Where have you worked? What type of law have you practiced? And you said you've been practicing law for 20 years, but just tell us about that legal experience that you've had.
So currently I have my own practice that I started in 2009, doing primarily, like I said, probate, trust and estate, and real estate work. Before that, it may be easier just for me to go back. Just before that, I worked as Deputy General Counsel for the Clerk of the Circuit Court in Cook County. Before that, I don't remember, to be honest with you, but I've been doing it. I've worked in corporate America, doing contracts management, and I worked for a company called Computer Associates for several years, working in, as a part of their legal team. That comes from my software background, and contracts, or CA was a software development company. I also worked for a firm. Several years ago, I worked for Steptoe and Johnson. I was also served as administrative law judge for the housing authority in the city of Indianapolis for a couple of years. I'm trying to think of what else. Professor. I've served as a professor of law for several years. Law, business law, healthcare in the law, software development in the law. Around that, I did that for several years. At the same time, I had my own practice back then as well.
So you've had your own practice primarily doing civil work for the past, you said since 2009, and that's been here in Illinois.
In Indiana and in Illinois. I'm licensed in Indiana, in Illinois, in the District of Columbia. Years ago, when I first graduated from law school, I moved to DC and got licensed there and worked for a firm there, Steptoe and Johnson. Okay. And then I moved back to Indianapolis when my mom fell ill, and I worked in Indy for some period of time, and then I moved to Illinois. And I'm licensed in all three. And I still practice in Indiana and Illinois.
Okay. Have you been evaluated by the Bar Association?
I have.
The Chicago Bar.
So the Chicago Bar rated me not recommended. That was their recommendation.
And were you evaluated by any of the bar associations involved in the Alliance of Bar Associations?
No.
Oh, you have not been. Well, why not?
I just felt like, I just didn't submit the response in the paperwork to do it. I focused on campaigning and took, my fight to the people. I really felt like, to be honest with you, if I can be perfectly honest, the Chicago Bar, was pulled together, 20 minutes with 14 people on a call who didn't look like me. I honestly just didn't understand if they really understood where I was coming from. Nobody else had, practices in my area of law. Probate and trust and estate is, I'm told that very few attorneys go into this area, and fewer judges. So I just don't know if my version of the truth is that they really just didn't get me. That's just where I am. So
you did not complete your application to be evaluated by any of the bar associations in the Alliance. Is that fair to say?
Correct. That's correct.
And if I could just circle back for a little bit, do you have any litigation experience? Have you done any trial work or anything like that?
No, I haven't ever practiced, done trial work, just bench trial.
Okay, very good. I'm going to move on to our next question then, which is, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
I just think I bring a different background and perspective to the bench. My area of, I have like I said, the technology area, and I do have some ideas in technology because I haven't done criminal law, so it's primarily on civil side. So some of my ideas are centered around, technology, improving in technology in the court systems. The legal field, as I consider it to be one of the last frontiers that come to technology. I did software development and got my undergraduate degree in computer science back in the 90s. And I did, the process reengineering back then. I know it sounds a little boring and it's a little, far removed from what people normally talk about. But for me, like I said, the pandemic forced the issue of the use of technology. So people, I've not been in the courtroom. I've done hearings for 2 years, right? I'm still practicing in Indiana and in Illinois, just on Zoom. I think it's important. I think the use of technology and the case management system, I helped to implement the case management system in Marion County and in Cook County. I think it helps to get people better access to justice. You don't have to, take off work to come to a hearing. You don't have to hire a babysitter. I think we can reduce some of the costs especially around probate work. I practice in Indiana. I just opened up a probate case in Indiana, $500 cost versus $1,100 cost in Illinois. I think we can reduce some of the costs. I think we can get, people into the hearings and in front of a judge more effectively, efficiently, and more cost effectively for sure. So those are some of the things that I want to do. I want to focus more on what I know, which is probate work, technology, and trying to refine it, implement it. And again, I worked as deputy of counsel for the clerk of court. The clerk is the keeper of the record. We had a lot of challenges, coming into use of the case management system, particularly with the judges. I will be honest with you, particularly with the judges, they didn't want to use it. But again, the pandemic forced the use of it. The clerk is the keeper of the record. A million cases flow through, a lot of paper. Carbon paper is a thing of stamping, the physical stamps. We came up with ideas like, electronic stamping, which we have been using in Indiana for a minute. So I have a lot of ideas around making the court system, more effective and easier to get access to, and judicial administration as well. So
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Attorney Bob Ultra. He's going to ask you the next series of questions that we have. Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Bob, you there?
All right, let me just unmute myself. All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Hammer, Attorney Hammer, thank you. Has your campaign received any political endorsements at this time? And if so, can you list them as well as any labor endorsements you received?
I haven't received any labor yet. I am anticipating receiving one. But my endorsements have been from the people, from community activists so far.
Thank you. Did I ask you, or I'm sorry if Ms. House already asked you this, but this question had to do with, I know you do your work primarily in estates and trust and probate, but with respect to forcible detainer cases, do you feel judges who are landlords who sit in forcible detainer cases can be fair in their rulings?
Who sit in forcible detainer? I'm not sure. I believe judges can be fair. I think we can be fair and treat people fairly and equitably. So just generally speaking, I believe in that.
All right. And I believe we've asked all the other questions, so that leaves us to the final question. And I'm not sure if Alderman Carruthers wants to ask it, or if I should just go ahead for the sake of time.
Yeah, Dave, just, Bob, why don't you just move ahead?
Sure, and that question is, if you are endorsed, will you be willing to pay the $250 fee so that we can promote our slate of judicial endorsements?
Of course.
All right, well, thank you so much. Attorney Hammer, we wish you the best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys your time.
Thank you.
All right, our next candidate is Dan Bellinoff, and let me admit, Mr. Bellinoff, Attorney Bellinoff. Attorney Bellinoff, thank you for joining us. You're in your basement just like me, or I'm sorry, you're in your loft space, unlike me. I call it, I guess, my loft. Thank you for joining us, and I apologize for the wait.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I understand how long these things can take.
Well, as you know, sometimes it just gets, we just sometimes lose track of time. So let's begin. You are running in the, running in the O'Brien vacancy. We also heard earlier from Jacqueline Marie Griffin, and now we want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you went to college, where you went to law school, and why it is that you want to be a judge.
Sure. So I went to college at Indiana University in Bloomington. Came back here for law school at John Marshall. Before that, I was an EMT at University of Iowa, where I got my EMT certification. And then, went to law school here. I started my legal career with the Cook County State's Attorney under Dick Devine. I was in the Narcotics Forfeiture Division. We pretty much kept drug money from returning to the streets once there was a valid arrest and seizure. I quickly decided that was not really for me. I wanted to work with families and people, so I opened up my firm on the southeast side, where my grandmother and my father had had the firm, for years and years. And I've been pretty much the neighborhood lawyer down there in the 10th Ward for the past 15 years. And I love working with the families in the community, but I feel like now is the time where, I can have a bigger impact on the justice system behind the bench rather than in front of it. My father's been the presiding judge over in juvenile for the past, I think, 3 years. And I've always enjoyed working with him on programs for children who are aging out of the juvenile system so that they can get employment, so that they can have some options outside of the streets. And I think that I would be a very good judge in that respect. In my particular race, I'm the only one who's running who actually works with families and represents people. There's, a career prosecutor, and Ms. Dela Cruz was, the corporate attorney for charter schools, union busting. So I think I'm the only one who actually has hands-on experience representing families for the past 15 years.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about representing families in the last 15 years. What exactly has that practice been? What kind of law has that been? Is this bench trials, jury trials, administrative hearings? And if it's any of those things, can you approximate numbers for us so we know the depth of your experience?
Sure. Most of my work would be, I guess, technically administrative hearings. So we're the neighborhood firm. We take pretty much anything that walks in off the street. We do a lot of adoptions, guardianship cases. My focus is mainly in probate, which is the entire 18th floor of the Daily Center. There's not many trials in the probate division. It's a lot of hearings. It's a lot of, will proves up their, quasi-trial atmospheres. But as far as trials, I only really face that when I'm in eviction courts. I defend, tenants against their landlords who are trying to evict them. And I've had maybe 5-10 of those in my tenure as an attorney. But I'm in court at least once a week. Like I said, doing will prove ups hearings, a lot of administrative hearings. I'm federally licensed in the bankruptcy or in the federal courts. I do bankruptcy there. We're also mainly bench trials and administrative hearings.
All right. You mentioned representing tenants in forcible detainer actions. Well, do you think that sitting judges who are landlords can give fair rulings in forcible detainer cases?
I think so. It's weird. My grandmother was a judge. My father is a judge. I sat at them with the table for the past 30 years talking to them about, how do they rule in certain cases? Why do they rule in certain cases? And I think that judges do have the ability to separate themselves from, their judgment in court versus what's going on in their personal life. Obviously, if it was their building, they'd have to recuse themselves. But in the theoretical world where can a judge be fair? Yes, I believe that a judge can always be fair, no matter what it is before that.
All right. Now, have you been evaluated by either the Chicago Bar Association or the Alliance of Bar Associations? If not, have you at least submitted to the evaluation?
I was reviewed by the Alliance. I would say probably about 3 years ago. I was recommended by the Cook County Bar Association. And I was recommended by the Hellenic Bar Association. They, I guess felt that because of my lack of trial experience that I wasn't qualified to be a judge. They found that same way with my grandmother and my father because of the area we practice where there's just not much trial experience. But as it's been proven, Bob Bellinoff has been a judge now for 15 years and is the presiding judge over there. Any walks of life can be good judges. It's not always trial experience.
Thank you, Attorney Bellinoff. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host or co-chair, Natalie House. I think she has a couple of questions as well.
Sure.
Hello, Attorney Bellinoff. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My next question to you is, we're asking all of the candidates the same questions. Is what would you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
So there's a few things that I think all judges could and should be doing. They need to be more in the community prior to in-court experiences. The first time you see a judge should not be in the courtroom. They should be out there in the community with the aldermen and state representatives, talking to people, letting people know that judges are a part of the judicial system and a part of the community, and that they will be treated fair. I think a lot of the problem is that there's a lack of trust, as well there should be, between the African American community and the legal community. And if they saw more of these judges in the community prior to court, I think they would feel that they were getting a more fair of a shake. They say, oh, I know a judge personally. It's not just, for those north side rich folks. So I think that's one thing that could be done. Also, I feel like just the respect level in the courtroom. I know I watch my father preside, and he takes painstaking amount of time explaining things to people, making sure that everyone who's in his courtroom understands what's going on. Even though, they might not understand all the legal jargon and the procedure stuff, but they have a good idea of what's going on, what's happening to them, what their options are. And I think you need judges who find that's something that's important, to make sure that all the communities can understand that.
Thank you. Our next question is, do you belong to any political and or civic organizations? If so, if you can detail those organizations, and also tell me what the leadership roles that we had.
So I was elected as the community representative to the local school council for Lincoln Park High, when I lived in Lincoln Park. I am active with the 43rd, the 46th, and the 47th Ward and 49th Ward Democratic organizations. I currently live in 42. Brendan Riley, he doesn't have much of an opportunity for folks to get involved as some of the North Side folks. I'm on the board of the American Cancer Society. I work a lot with them, raising funds for cancer research. The Ronald McDonald House down in Hyde Park, where I grew up. If you ever get a chance to go to the Ronald McDonald House, you get to make dinner for the kids who are going to the hospital the next day, and it's probably the most wonderful feeling out there. And then as far as I'm in the West Loop now, I'm active with the West Loop Chamber of Commerce and the West Loop Community Organization.
Thank you. I'll leave the last two questions that we have to Alderman Ike Carruthers.
Yes.
Alderman Carruthers.
Thank you, Natalie. Good to see you again, Attorney Bellinoff.
Yes, sir.
As I've told some candidates when I'm kind of running around different events, I see you're always there. So it looks like you're pretty busy as well.
It is. I try to be out there. Like I said, I feel like people need to know the candidates, need to know the judges.
And it's a big county. Just a couple of things. Has your campaign received any endorsements of any sort?
Yes, many endorsements. On the West Side, specifically, my state representative, Keisha Collins, has endorsed me. Alderman Chris Taliaferro, I know he's also running for judge. He endorsed me. Byron Sigcho Lopez on the North Side, Ann Williams. The IBI IPO just recently endorsed me. We do have a list somewhere, but I don't have. But yes, we've been endorsed by mostly progressive and West Side politicians and organizations.
Okay, great. And the last question that I have is, if your campaign is endorsed by the coalition, would your campaign be willing to contribute the $250 to help support the cost to further move your endorsement out to the community?
Absolutely, yeah. I certainly have no problem with that. And I'd also like to point out that I live here in the 7th Sub-Circuit. I initially had circulated petitions for countywide and for the sub-circuit. I had spoken with Alderman Irving, and I believe that the sub-circuit, my Uncle Clem helped draw the sub-circuits, and that they're there to have a racially more diverse bench. When there was no candidate in the 7th Sub-Circuit, I said, I'd love to be your guy, but I know that this is an African-American district, and if any African-American candidate gets in this race, I will not be running in it. Joe Shelby got into the race. I'm sure you guys talked to him or are going to talk to him. He's a wonderful attorney. And so I stepped out because I believe that the West Side and the 7th Sub-Circuit deserves a representation of an African-American candidate.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and please accept our apologies for the long wait in the waiting room.
No, good luck to you guys. I'll get out of your hair. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Our next candidate is Yolanda Harris-Sayre, and she is running in the Cheryl Ingram vacancy. And Ms. Sayre is joining us now. Attorney Sayre.
Hello.
Hello. We don't see you, but we hear you. We hear you, but we don't see you. Is your camera on, or are we not going to see you?
It will be in 1 second.
Okay.
1 quick second.
Natalie, I think you're doing this.
Sure. Well, I need to just pull over.
Please, yes. We have to have some judges on Zoom. Please.
She's probably using her iPhone.
Get my daughter. I'm pulling over. Sorry about that.
Yeah, those iPhones do it all the time.
Well, the iPhone users know how
All
to
right.
get done at the same time. So,
1 second.
All right, as soon as you're in a safe area or a safe parking spot, let us know and we'll begin.
Okay. I am pulling in right now to a safe spot, a gas station.
We're gonna stop the video for a second.
Now.
We're gonna stop the video until you stop the car, and then we'll start. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I'm ready. Sorry about that.
No problem. We don't want to be accountable for any vehicle code violation tonight. Well, thank you for joining us, and please, we're glad you joined us, and we're very sorry if we made you wait in our waiting room too long. But at least it looks comfortable. My co-host Natalie House, I think, will begin the questioning.
hello, Attorney Sayer. How are you this evening?
Hi, how are you, Attorney House? Thank you. I'm
Thank
doing
you so
well.
much. Good. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are the West Side Coalition PAC. We appreciate your participation in our judicial forum. I just wanted to tell you that we are asking all candidates the same question, and we are same questions rather. And we are beginning by asking the candidates to tell us about themselves, including what college and law school they attended, and also tell us why they are running for judge.
Okay. I attended State University of New York at Buffalo, and I majored in economics and finance. And I went to the University of Texas at Austin School of Law. So I didn't go to school here. I went to school in Texas.
Okay. Wow. And tell us why you're running for judge.
Well, I want to run for judge. Well, several reasons. I mean, first of all, I never wanted to be a judge. It was never my lifelong dream
Okay.
or anything like that. I was an administrative law judge for about 10 years. And I worked with a lot of pro se self-represented litigants, and some of my coworkers would overhear my hearings, and they started encouraging me to be a judge because I got the reputation for being able to treat self-represented litigants in a way that they felt heard, they felt as if they were being treated fairly, while not upsetting the attorneys on the other side or making them feel disadvantaged in any way. And so they started encouraging me. And, you know, I'm a woman of faith. And at first I ran from it. And then I started getting what I call, 21 signs from God that I should do it. And what I realized is that I really want to have an impact on the criminal justice and juvenile justice systems. If I'm so fortunate as to make it and then be assigned there, because a lot of my background has to do with criminal law and criminal procedure. I worked in law enforcement for many years, not as a law enforcement officer, but as a lawyer. And I saw, not only did I learn the law like the back of my hand, but I learned the underbelly of the criminal justice system. And I would really like to do something about that.
So just briefly, you said you went to the State University of New York at Buffalo. Well, are you originally from the Chicagoland area, or are you from New York?
I got to Chicago in 1995. So I'm originally from New York. I spent a big chunk of my childhood in the islands, but mostly Puerto Rico. So even though I'm African American, I learned to speak Spanish.
Okay.
So
all right.
I come from all over.
Very good. So now you said that you worked in law enforcement as an attorney. If you can just please detail for us your legal career since you graduated from University of Texas Law School.
Sure. I'll go in reverse chronological order. It's a little bit easier. Right now, I'm currently legal counsel for the Illinois State Police, and I practice litigation, employment law, employee discipline, Fourth Amendment, civil rights, firearm safety law, and then other in-house government type laws like FOIA, open meetings, things like that. So that's what I do right now. for many years, I was with the Chicago Police Department, and I was an attorney there. I was an instructor, and I was a subject matter expert in the Fourth Amendment. So I testified in state and federal court. I've testified both for officers and against officers. I've seen great police work, and then I've seen egregious abuse of the power and that have sent officers to prison. I was assigned to the Office of Constitutional Policing and Reform. So probably the last thing that I did was I wrote the new curriculum, the new Fourth Amendment curriculum for the entire city, the new constitutional policing Fourth Amendment curriculum mandated by the consent decree. And I was a thorn in their side for so many years that when it came time to have to put it on paper and create the new constitutional policing, they had no choice but to come to me to do it. So I basically did it single-handed. So I'm pretty proud of that. I preached for many years teaching them to do the right thing, to stay out of prison. And so I just feel like I have a lot less power in that role than I would as a judge. I'm committed to, ending wrongful conviction. I'm committed to, stopping an arrest that happens no probable cause dead in its tracks. And, the same thing with a stop without reasonable suspicion. I know it very, very well. And I just feel like I can have a much bigger impact at that level.
So now you've indicated that you worked as an administrative law judge for at least 10 years. Can you tell just little details about your trial experience, if you can quantify?
Sure. So a lot of my career has, so let me just tell you, before that, I was also with the Texas Attorney General's Office, which is where I started early in my career, litigating and learning the fundamentals of litigation. And so, my experience is mostly administrative litigation. And I didn't preside over the type of hearings where you get your car booted and you go in for 30 minutes and plead your case. I presided over many trials. So we start with an initial hearing. We have a court reporter, adversary, parties, sometimes multiple parties. It's very contentious. Sometimes, these are initial hearings and then status and then motion hearings, evidentiary hearings, and then writing an opinion of 10 to 30 pages long. So in 10 years, I was never reversed by the circuit or appellate court. My opinions are online, so you can, read them. Basically, I made hundreds of evidentiary rulings. I ruled on hundreds of different types of motions. And so that is a strong component. It's quasi-judicial experience. So it's not trial experience in the traditional sense. It's quasi-judicial. I've also been a prosecutor with the Secretary of State's office. I had a big contract and did 2 years with them. So I represented the Secretary more than 100 times. And those weren't as complex as the other types of hearings, but they were formal administrative proceedings, subject to administrative review and subject to reversal by the circuit or appellate court. So I've also done, I wanted to get more jury experience, to be honest, just to kind of round out my experience. I did some early in my career, but I wanted to get more. So what I did was I volunteered with the pro bono jury program with the First Municipal District. And I was able to do one, and then they shut it down because of COVID-19. So I wasn't able to do much. But I've also done a lot of community service. I've done expungement. I've done limited scope agreements where I've helped people who were in court representing themselves do their pleading, draft their pleadings. I've won, summary judgment motions in federal court, just basically on a volunteer basis with a limited scope agreement.
So let me just ask you this. Have you been evaluated by the bar associations? If so, how are you rated from the reviewing bar associations?
I have all positive ratings from all of the bar associations that evaluated me, except one. I do have one negative rating.
Okay. And which bar association is that from?
The ISBA.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn it over now to Attorney Bob Culture. He will ask you the next series of questions. Thank you so much, Attorney Sayre.
Thank you.
Yes, Attorney Sayre, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you what you think about the following question. Do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give just rulings in enforceable detainer cases?
I'd like to think so. If they're sitting in those hearings, I'd like to think so. But honestly, I don't know. It depends on the judge. I mean, I certainly would think that a judge would recuse themselves if they had, if they had issues with, or certain familiarity with, particular situations. But take an oath to be, impartial. And so I'd like to think that a judge could be both a landlord and give a fair and just ruling, especially considering they're subject to review.
Now, we also have another question, and that is, what would you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
In sentencing? Is that what you asked me?
Yes, fairly treated, and if they're found guilty, fairly sentenced.
Okay. Well, I think that there's often, there's certain times where judges' hands are tied by, legislative mandatory sentencing. But, to the extent that a judge has discretion, I think it's important to look at, factors such as, a person's background, priors. I know that, for example, when you look at narcotics, there is much harsher sentencing with drugs like crack cocaine, whereas, drugs like powder cocaine tend to be treated differently. I understand the lack of equity in those situations because it's mostly minorities that would be, in the situation of being sentenced for possession or, whatever the offense is, manufacture, delivery, whatever, of crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. And so I'm very aware of those biases in the system, as well as, just people's personal bias. So if you're asking what I would do about that, I would definitely take that into account. That's one thing that I believe that, representation on the bench of minorities helps. There's a difference. I might view a situation where a young African-American man is running from the police. I might view it much differently than one of my counterparts who's on the bench who didn't have the experiences I had growing up as a Black female. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
As far as, I believe that, many minorities there's a lack of access and a lack of fairness. There are things like language barriers. And that's one thing that I believe that the fact that I speak Spanish fluently, even though I'm not Latina, is helpful. I have stopped hearing in the past because I heard the interpreter incorrectly interpret what I said. And I've also, stopped hearing because I've heard a litigant, answer a question in a way that let me know that they didn't understand the question. So I've made the interpreter rephrase the question. And those are things that I consider that go toward fundamental fairness.
Thank you. The next question is, do you belong into any political or civic organizations, just briefly?
I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, where we do a lot of community service all over the country. I don't know if you're familiar with it's the Black sorority. I know Attorney House is familiar with it. She's in the other. She's in the other sorority. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm a member of several bar associations. I'm active. I've taught legal education, continuing legal education to attorneys for several years now for the Chicago Bar Association. So I'm active in my community. I do volunteer work, like I said. And, I'm not really a political person, so I was never a member, so to speak. I always had to be neutral because I worked for the Electoral Board for many years. So I was never engaged in that way politically, but I have been engaged in a civic manner.
Now, I think Alderman Carruthers might have some not follow-up, but some last few questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Hello, Attorney Sarah. Good to see you.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for joining. As I've told many candidates, I've seen you a couple of times out on the campaign trail, so I know you're making a lot of rounds. And I know it's a big county out there.
Ooh, I was just in Forest Park.
Okay.
It's this side of town while I was waiting.
Okay. All right.
So sorry
So
about that.
just a couple of things. So has your campaign received any political endorsements or union endorsements?
Yes, I am endorsed by the Democratic Party. I'm slated in the Ingram vacancy. So I was put forth by the Black Caucus because I'm an African American candidate, but I was also endorsed by the Latino Caucus, the Suburban Caucus, and the North Side Caucus. So I have a lot of support in that sense. Last cycle I was slated as an alternate, and I opted not to run against the party. I helped a lot of the people running. So of course this cycle there was a lot of love for me. Which bodes well because it's kind of hard to peel support away. But so I'm grateful for that. I've also been endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor. I've been endorsed by the Firefighters Union. I've been endorsed by the Sergeants Union. I've been endorsed by the IBEW, although I don't have the letter yet. Several of the other unions. Some of them supported me, even though they don't endorse separately, but I have strong support with labor, including the CFL.
Okay. So for the firefighters, is that local too?
Yes, local too.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I have is kind of my final question would be that if you were endorsed by the coalition, would your campaign be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover all costs, or not all costs, but to support covering costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
Absolutely. No question.
That's all I have, Bob. Nellie?
I have one final question for Attorney Sarah.
Sure.
What is the name of the first African American sorority founded in the United States?
Let me think. I can't remember.
This is going south real fast.
It's Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Oh, she's a smart lady.
Now, I don't want you to say that because I have to admit, and I have to be full disclosure, my wife is an AKA as well. So.
Well, that redeemed you. That is the redeeming.
I'm surrounded.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Attorney Sarah. We wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
All right.
All right, our next candidate is in the Brennan vacancy. It's Lisa Michelle Taylor, and Ms. Taylor is joining us momentarily.
Good evening. I am present and accounted for.
Well, thank you. I apologize for any kind of confusion there may have been with the time or swapping times or changing times. So,
full and complete responsibility for that. I was the problem child. I just double booked myself.
It's okay. That's all right. We're all good, and we're glad you're here to join us. And I want to have Natalie House begin with some of the questions, and then Alderman Carruthers and I will also have a few questions for you as well.
Wonderful. Good evening.
Hello, Attorney Taylor. How are you this evening?
Well, thank you.
And I want to apologize for any confusion that I may have caused this evening in terms of your interview schedule. But we are asking, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this evening and participating in our judicial forum for the coalition. We are the West Side Coalition, PAC. We represent the communities of the 7th Congressional District, which is for Congressman Danny K. Davis. And we are asking all of the candidates the exact same questions this evening. And we are beginning with the question of, tell us about yourself, tell us where you went to college and law school, and tell us why you're running for judge.
I am born and raised in the city of Chicago. I currently live in the Bronzeville area. I attended high school at Von Steuben on the northwest side of the city, Augustana College, and I'm still calling it John Marshall, and I'll add the UIC in there for the new people at the institution. I have always desired to be of service. It was a little difficult initially as I came home from college with a BA in English and a little BA/BY. So I worked full-time during the day and went to law school at night. However, as my daughter grew, I was able to volunteer, and the little people are very near and dear to me. So you will see visiting my website, listening to me talk to people in the community about my volunteering with CASA, about my Know Your Rights seminars for the young people when they start driving, as well as the Chicago Bar Association's Lawyers in the Classroom. So my desire in seeking a judicial position at this juncture, after being a trial attorney for over 20 plus years, doing everything except for bankruptcy, divorce, and antitrust, is my opportunity to continue to be of service in a different way.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So now you indicated that you have done all types of cases, except for a few. So just tell us about your legal experience. Tell us where you worked and exactly how many years have you been practicing?
So this is my 22nd year of practice. I think yesterday was my anniversary. I was sworn in May 10th, 2001.
Congratulations.
So I have a very unique perspective that I bring to the bench, which is another reason why I felt at this juncture in my career that I am well qualified. As you all know, all judges start in traffic. But after that training, I am able to go anywhere in the building. As I said earlier, I started working full-time as a legal secretary, going to law school at night. That gave me a unique perspective because I knew how to do all the stuff that new lawyers don't know how to do. So at that point in time, I was doing insurance coverage and defense work, so torts, premises, those types of things.
You think you were doing this while you were legal secretary, or?
Yes. Yes, as a legal secretary. So then I was fortunate enough to be hired on at the small firm. I went on to work at Pretzel and Stouffer, so that's where I got my med mal, my ISME work, my deficits, premises, construction defect. I left there and went back to the gentleman who hired me immediately following law school. That was at Lewis Brisbois, so nationwide law firm. They made me a partner, and I did everything: nursing home, coverage stuff. We were national counsel for Aramark, which was the food service for the jail, so tons of federal court cases. I left that firm and then went to the plaintiff side, working with Vic Henderson and Sam Adams Jr. That's where I got my criminal court exposure. I tried a med mal case. I tried a police shooting case. I recall when I was doing my evaluations for the bar associations, they were like, what kind of, expert depositions? I said, well, I get to take a police shooting expert. That was something I had not done before, but I've done that. And in fact, I'll be giving an expert seminar for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office this month. So just a broad base. I'm back to doing defense work, doing a lot of coverage work, doing probate stuff. So just vast experience, and I've been very fortunate in that regard.
So if you can't, are you able to then quantify, like, your trial experience, how many bench trials, or approximate how many bench trials and jury trials you've done for a big coalition?
So I have to say, because I did see Judge Valderrama recently, who is now on the U.S. District Court.
Right.
I had a coverage case before him that got appealed, and I told him he was wrong, and the appellate court told him he was wrong. So I don't think he'll ever forget my face because of that. So I have tried numerous cases, so over 15 cases in the Chancery Division, because remember, I've done everything. I have my last bench trial or jury trial on the plaintiff side was before Judge Budzinski. That was a police shooting case. I did a couple of, this is 21, so in 19, I did one bench, one jury. And as I said, I tried a med mal case out as a plaintiff's attorney out in Will County. I did a plaintiff's case before judge out in DuPage County. So remember, the license is good for the state. So I've appeared in other courthouses, summary judgments in St. Clair County. So
okay.
I'd say, over 10 jury trials.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So have you then, you mentioned the bar associations. Have you been evaluated by the bars? If so,
I have been recommended, rated, and or qualified by every bar association that reviews us. And I encourage you to look at the comments from the Chicago Bar Association, where my colleagues said I've got knowledge, integrity, and excellent temperament.
very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Attorney Taylor. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Attorney Bob Holtra. He will ask you the next series of questions that the coalition has for all the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Taylor, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
Well, I have to start by saying I don't use the word minorities. I use the word people of color. So when I respond to your question, I just wanted to make you aware that that's the verbiage that I use. So you have to remember, because I've done everything, I am still one of the only African-American attorneys that appears in the Chancery Division. In fact, I was before Judge Wilson 45 days ago and was the only female African-American attorney in the courtroom. Because I have defended cases against pro se litigants, I think that gives me a special perspective about treating all people. I know that we recognize that the Lady of Justice has that blindfold on, but she is not a blind woman. And so I say to this panel and to any litigant that comes before me, every litigant is to be treated with respect. What I continue to do, even today in private practice, where I am one of the few attorneys seeking a judicial position who's still required to bill hours, is give back by way of volunteering to any student who wants to be engaged in the mentoring programs for the associations that I am involved in, most specifically the Cook County Bar Association. So I was at an event this evening, a Know Your Rights seminar at a public library, and one of the young women who's a law student that I mentor showed up. So I think that it is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we are the example for how people should be treated with respect and kindness.
Another question is whether you think landlords can fairly adjudicate and listen to judges who are landlords can fairly adjudicate and give fair rulings in forceful detainer cases.
Well, absolutely. So fortunately, I have also handled some of those matters. So, in my community in particular, you may only know one person who's an attorney, and so you assume that they do all types of law. So in answer to your question, I firmly believe that jurists following the law can give fair rulings in those situations. It's a very unique time for us now, especially with the pandemic, recognizing the homelessness issue with a pandemic issue, and those factors must be taken into account. And I think on a governmental level, at least Cook County has done a particularly good job, because I've in fact told friends that I have that own properties about the different programs that the county has in order to help the landlords to make sure that we are not creating a greater homeless population in the Chicagoland area.
Thank you. Has your, I'm sorry, do you belong to any political and or civic organization? And if so, can you tell us which ones they are?
I do not belong to any political organizations other than to say to you in the lingo, I am a 3B. I've always voted Democratic. As far as civic organizations, I don't particularly belong to any civic organizations unless you consider the Bar Association to be a civic organization. So I'm a very active member of the Cook County Bar Association.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor, Attorney Taylor, and I think Alderman Carruthers has a few closing questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. I'm going to be very brief. Thank you for joining again, Attorney Taylor.
Thank you.
And sorry to apologize for the lateness of the hour, as I see it's kind of moving on here. One thing that Jesse Jackson said I believe in is that a meeting should end the same day it starts. So,
amen.
So we're getting close to that point. Very quickly, has your campaign received any political endorsements?
I have a written endorsement when I was seeking the party's endorsement for from Angie Gonzalez, and she is in the 26th ward. So that is the only official, because remember, Mr. Carruthers, I am a lawyer. I need evidence. The jury needs evidence. I'm a trial lawyer. They need something to hang their hat on. So there have been other people who have indicated that perhaps they are supportive of me, but that is the only hard evidence I present to you this evening, sir.
I get it. I understand how that goes. And then lastly, the only other question that I have is one that we've asked all candidates. And that is, if your candidacy is endorsed by the coalition, would you be willing, or your campaign, I should say, be willing to pay the $250 fee to assist in covering the costs incurred to promote your endorsement?
I am sure that my campaign chairperson would be ready, willing, and able to comply with any request.
All right, very good. Well, that's all I have, Bob and Ellie. Thank you so much, and good seeing you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Taylor, and we'll
Thank
talk
you
again.
all.
All right.
Be well.
Good luck to you in your candidacy.
Thanks so much.
Our next candidate is Judge Dominique Ross, and Judge Dominique Ross is running for the Shelvin Louise Hall vacancy. That's the appellate court first district. There are 2 appellate court vacancies this time. It's the Judge Hall vacancy and also the one recently created by Judge Shelley Harris retiring. Judge Ross, thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for the extended wait in our waiting room without any refreshments or snacks. So we apologize, at least none that we've provided.
It's okay, thank you.
All right, and I believe Alderman Carruthers wants to lead off the question.
All right.
All right. Okay. Well, again, Judge, I'd like to apologize for the lateness of the hour. I kind of feel like we've done this several times before, and I'm starting to feel like the last few times we were in that room to, I don't know, 10 o'clock or better, Bob. So I guess we need to get right to it. Your Honor, you're running for the appellate court. So certainly it's a little bit different. We don't have many appellate court candidates. But could you tell us something just about yourself, schools you attended, and also law school, and why you're running for the appellate court?
All right. Well, as you know, I'm Judge Dominique C. Ross, and I am born and raised on the south side of Chicago.
I attended Elizabeth Seton High School. I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana for undergraduate, where I majored in communications, and I attended Loyola Law School. I want to be an appellate court justice because as a circuit court, I'll start there, as a circuit court judge, I have the ability to affect the lives of people on a day-to-day basis. It's very personal, and it affects those people who stand before me. However, as an appellate court justice, I can take that same commitment to fairness and equity, and it will affect all of the people of Illinois. And by that I mean that as an Illinois appellate court justice, you have the opportunity to have case law that sets precedent that the lower courts have to follow. So rather than just affecting the one family that might come in front of me or the one criminal case that comes in front of me, what the court rules published will then become case law. And just to let me add to that, I think that it's important that I be on the appellate court because I believe that my background, my diversity, not just based upon race, but my diversity in my practice of law, the diversity of where I sit. We don't have a lot of appellate court justices who came from the domestic relations division, although there is a very high percentage of those cases that take up appellate court time. And so to have the background of a domestic relations judge, which in fact, I might add, covers many areas of the law. It's not just family law. It may cover issues of criminal law. It may cover issues of wills and estates. It may cover issues of commercial law and contracts. So there's a myriad of different types of issues. And we have to remember that when people go to court, it's not just about criminal cases. We have a civil division as well, and we have to be just as involved and understand that it is important that civil cases be fair and equitable as well.
Thank you so much for your response. Could you, as I indicated, it's a little different when you're running for the appellate. Could you kind of maybe just give us a little bit about your career in terms of where you sat? You're running for appellate court now. How long have you actually been a judge? Give us the kind of the breadth of your career in the system.
Okay, well, I will start with where I am right now. I am in the domestic relations division where I have been a trial judge for almost 14 years. And the difference between the trial judge and the other judges are we have preliminary judges, we have trial judges, and we also have expedited judges. At one time, we had paternity and parentage judges who sat in a different division, which was actually a subdivision, I would say, and a post-decree division. Now, as a trial judge, I hear post-decree matters, parentage matters, and all cases that are ready to go to trial or contentious issues that are set for hearing. So again, they cover all of the areas that I just spoke of from time to time, although the majority of it deals with marital property division, allocation of parental responsibilities, which used to be called custody, and parenting time, which used to be called visitation. There was a complete overhaul of the domestic relations, or the IMDMA, the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act, in 2016, and the laws continue to advance and change as our society dictates. So prior to that, I was in private practice. I was in private practice for 13 years. I handled all types of cases. I handled criminal misdemeanors and felonies. The majority of my cases did deal with
Well,
domestic
listen, y'all
relations
doing a great job.
types of cases that I just explained, and landlord-tenant eviction cases, contracts. I represented not-for-profit organizations and advising them on acquiring property, the contracts in which they entered into, and just the myriad of different things, employment law. I did very little, but if I thought that a case was important enough and it mattered to the client that I was representing, I would take on that case.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Attorney Natalie House. Thank you so much for your responses.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Judge Ross. How are you this evening?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So now, have you been evaluated by the bar associations for the appellate court? And if so, how were you rated from those reviewing bar associations?
Well, right now, the first one that I was rated for was the Chicago Bar Association, which they were the first ones out of the gate for that. The Alliance was not rating at that time for the primary elections for judges. So the Chicago Bar Association has found me qualified, and I just received the Decalogue today, and they have found me recommended, and the rest of them are pending. They are slowly coming in.
Okay. All right, very good. So now, as this question relates to the appellate court, and maybe you can talk about your experience as a trial court judge, circuit court judge in domestic relations. What will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities become justice involved, are fairly treated and sentenced? So if you know, we talk about that in relation to what you may see on the appellate court, criminal appeals, or what you've seen in your experience as a trial court judge.
I'm not real sure of the question. Can you repeat it, please?
My apologies. What will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated and sentenced?
You said that are just as involved?
Oh, no. When, if they're involved in the criminal justice system. So if they're just as involved, if they're involved in the criminal justice system, it's a polite way of saying,
Oh, I see. Well, what I will do differently will be basically what is part of my environment, my background, and what is in my DNA. My experience is going to be different than those justices who sit on the bench now. From the statistical standpoint, right now, there are 24 justices in the first district, and that is all of Cook County. Of those 24 justices, there are only 3 Black female elected judges on the appellate court. One sits by assignment and at the pleasure of the Supreme Court. What I will do different is the fact that everybody else doesn't look like me. They don't have the same experiences that I have. And I will bring to the bench my experiences, which are probably different, having been a Black female growing up on the south side of Chicago. And while many times as a minority, we are expected to be able to deal within our own community and within communities outside of our own, where it's not always the case. And when you are dealing with the majority. And so therefore, the majority who does not have to understand and does not necessarily have to know what we have experienced, we do. And I will bring that to the bench, because as an appellate court judge, I don't just bring my knowledge of the law, I bring my experiences. I bring what I know to be something that might be different within the community. I heard someone say, and I think that it is very appropriate, that if in the event the police show up, and it's a group of, let's just say, African-American men, young men. They see the police show up and they start to run. If you grow up in a particular neighborhood, then you might run from the police because perhaps you were harassed by the police. Perhaps you had someone in your family who had a bad experience with the police. But if you didn't grow up in that same neighborhood, a judge who did not grow up in that same neighborhood, who did not have those same experiences, may give a jury instruction of an inference of guilt simply because they ran. And the instructions that are given by the judge are very important. And it's important that we have a diverse judiciary in all aspects: experience, background, legal practice. And because if it's homogeneous, everybody's going to think the same and all the outcomes are going to be the same. And it's going to always be the same for the people who come in front of them, depending upon what group you are in. And if it was not important, then we would not have had a head of this country who decided that he wanted to stack the federal courts with all of the judges he wanted to appoint. That's how important it is. And we have to understand how important it is, because he appointed about 57 federal judges, which is record number for any sitting president. And that is because judges have the ability to affect generations to come long after we are gone.
All right, thank you. Now, this is a question that we're asking all of the candidates, okay? And you can apply it to your appellate court, to the candidacy. Do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling enforceable in detainer cases?
Not if they're trying to kick them out of their building.
Their own building, right? That would be need to recuse themselves with hope. Right.
I think that a judge who is a landlord has to know when to recuse. And that may be one of the times that he has to recuse, because it might touch a nerve. And at the very least, that particular judge, it may be a thing that he needs to disclose. I don't know. But I will say this: if it is found out by the people who come in front of him that he is a landlord, then there's a possibility that there could be a problem. So I do recognize that there could be a problem. So I think it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, we hope that we are able to separate and compartmentalize, because if you lived on this life, on this earth long enough, there's probably nothing that you haven't seen. And I hope not with the case of violence, but probably nothing that you haven't experienced or know that somebody has experienced. So if we made every judge who may have had a similar experience recuse themselves or say that they could not be fair, then we might have a problem having judges, because you would pretty much have to live under a rock in order to have not experienced most things in this life.
Very true. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Bob Coltra. He will answer the last few questions that we have. Thank you. Attorney Bob.
Ross, you're our third appellate court candidate, and we've asked this question of all the appellate court candidates, and that is, what is your affirmance rate, if you know?
I absolutely do know. I have been appealed 12 times, and I have been affirmed 11 of those 12 times. I have one reversal. And of those cases, they actually break it down into the areas of law. And so if you look at the areas of practice, there have been 13. So it was, I actually had the percentage rate, and I think I'm running at like 98% affirmed. I'd have to double check. So I definitely have looked at that. So, yes.
We also have a question with respect to political endorsements. Do you have, which political endorsements do you have, and have they been of any labor union?
I have the Illinois AFL-CIO, and that is comprised of a myriad of different labor unions. I would have to look at a sheet to tell you which ones that they are. I got my letter of congratulations from the Firemen's Union, so I know that they're one of them.
You're talking about Local 2 of the Chicago Fire Department?
It just said fire. I'd have to go look at the letter, I'm sorry.
All right.
And I have the endorsement of the Cook County Democratic Party. I have the endorsement of the Black Caucus, which is within the Democratic Party. And I have the endorsement of many other political leaders, including some of the state reps like Nick Smith, Pam Buckner. Those are to name a few. So,
thank you. One final question, and that is, if you're endorsed by the coalition, will you be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover all costs incurred by the coalition in promoting our judicial endorsements?
Certainly, I will.
Thank you so much. Thank you for waiting in our waiting room. We really appreciate your time, and good luck to you on your campaign, Judge Rose.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, our next candidate is Thomas Nowinski, and he is in the Hyman vacancy. He's running in the Hyman vacancy. Judge Hyman retired, or I think Judge Hyman actually went to the appellate court, didn't he?
Yep.
Right, did not retire.
Went to the appellate court. He did not retire. Yeah, I know. I've read some opinions from Justice Hyman. So I think Tom, his microphone's on, and there we go. Here's Mr. Nowinski. Boy, Tom, I didn't know you live in a Frank Lloyd Wright home. Look at that, huh? I know you're from Oak Park, but that's very nice seeing you out there.
Hey, you know, it's one of the things that my wife liked about the house.
There you go. Well, Tom, welcome. Welcome to the West Side Coalition PAC's Judicial Forum. You're, kind of a last but not least. You're running in the Hyman vacancy, as I just mentioned. And we want to begin by asking you to tell us a little bit about where you went to school, college, law school, and also if you would share with us why it is that you want to be a circuit court judge.
Sure. So I've been in the Chicago area my entire life. High school, I went to a Catholic school on the South Side, Marist High School, and I didn't stray too far for undergrad. I went to Loyola up in Rogers Park, and then just because I didn't think the Jesuits had enough of my money, I went to Loyola for law school as well. So I've been in school and living in the Chicagoland area my whole life. I want to be a judge because I've seen the impact that a judge can have on somebody's life. A judge is the elected official that most people will come in contact with, as opposed to a governor or a legislator or whatnot. And I've seen it firsthand because I've been in the courtroom. I was in the courtroom for the majority of my career. I've seen good judges. I've seen bad judges. I've seen how they can affect, a person's life in a very significant way. And then, my dad was a judge, and so when I was a kid, I used to go to work with him in the summers, and I'd watch him. I'd watch the other judges. I'd talk to the defense attorneys, public defenders, state's attorneys, talk with the clerks, the sheriffs, anybody that I was a resident hang around, I guess, the courthouse. And, you know, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. It was to make a difference in people's lives by doing the right thing. And so my entire legal career has been, you know, in the public sector and trying to get to that position.
Thank you. We want to ask you about your legal career, Tom, but can we ask you to turn your phone horizontally so we can see a full view of you? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm usually on my computer, but my daughter is using it for school right now, so she trumps dad.
that's okay, no problem. But now we can see a much bigger picture of you, and that'll be broadcast on the live stream. The voters will be able to see you as well. So you were saying that you know, you're talking about your experiences. Can you tell us about your litigation experience? What kind of law you practice? How many years you practice? And also, you know, how many bench or jury trials or hearings you've done? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I started in the state's attorney's office in their appellate division, and in that division, did I lose it? Oh, there. In that division, I wrote more than 30 appeals in the Illinois Appellate Court. I argued one. Only one of my cases was a call for oral argument. After there, I practiced out of the Markham Courthouse for my career in the Criminal Bureau. I was in the Criminal Bureau for a little over 4 years. I tried hundreds of bench trials. I tried 9 criminal jury trials. And then I was in the felony review unit when I transferred to the Civil Actions Bureau, part of the State Attorney's Office. In the Civil Actions Bureau, you know, I was there for about 8 years in total in the Civil Actions Bureau, where I tried 3 federal jury trials. The last one was a 6-week-long federal jury trial that was a case that had been pending for it's about 4 years before we went to trial, and we had about 150 depositions, extensive motion practice. So it was a very, very big case. While I was also in the state attorney's office, I handled a lot of labor and employment cases. That's where I became the lead attorney on the Shackman litigation. I was the lead attorney representing various elected offices in the county in the Shackman litigation.
Is that with respect to the hiring plan that eventually got formulated by the county?
Right. So I played a role in drafting their employment plan that covered all the hiring and employment matters, employment actions to make sure that their unlawful political reasons and factors were not utilized. That's when you know, that kind of became my niche. Well, I also did labor work for the county. I was deputy director of labor relations, so I negotiated all of the contracts with the 94 different collective bargaining unit agreements with, I think it was 31 separate unions, if I remember from back then. So I have extensive labor and employment background, and you know, that's kind of where I fell into was that niche of labor employment, and then the Shackman litigation.
Great. Well, that's quite a breadth of experience. Can you tell us if you've been evaluated by the bar associations, and if so, what the results have been?
I have. I've been evaluated by all of the bar associations, and I have qualified or recommended ratings by every evaluating association.
Excellent. Now, I want to be able to have our other co-hosts also ask you a few questions. So at this time, I'm going to ask Natalie House. I think she may have a few questions for you.
Hi, Attorney Nowinski. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for being patient. Apologize for running a little bit behind. But we're asking all the candidates the same question. So my questions for you are: what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly and treated fairly, are fairly treated in sentence? I'm sorry. If you want me to repeat that, I will repeat that.
No, I think I got it. So, I guess I don't know if I would do anything differently personally. You know, I have always taken the position where no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your zip code, no matter what your race, gender, ethnicity, you're entitled to not only to be heard, but you're entitled to your day in court. You know, I'm a firm believer of justice needs to be done. Justice does not necessarily mean guilty, not guilty. Justice means what is best for the community, what is right. That's what my parents always told me: do the right thing. And you know, when I was a state's attorney, that didn't mean try to put everybody that you can in jails, not just to get a guilty verdict. That's not what justice is. Justice sometimes means dismissing a case when you don't believe that the person was properly arrested and charged. You know, the law enforcement sometimes, you know, they don't get it right. And so as a prosecutor, it was my duty to make it right. As a judge, that'll be my responsibility to continue to make things right. If I see that something isn't just, then I make sure that it is just. And that goes for all individuals, no matter who you are, where you come from, completely.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is: do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling in forcible detainer cases?
So I think sitting judges who are who also can give fair rulings in. Wow, I've never thought of that before. You know, I think that a judge who takes her or his oath properly and follows the law, I think they can give rulings. I think a judge should think twice, though, if put in that situation, of whether or not they really should do that. You know, it's a judge must follow the canons of ethics, of judicial conduct, and if even the mere appearance of impropriety is there, then they should take it upon themselves to excise them from that situation and recuse themselves.
All right, very good. The next question that I have for you is just whether or not you belong to any political or civic organizations, and if so, can you tell me what those organizations are, and if you hold any leadership positions in those organizations?
Sure. So, civic organizations, I am the treasurer of the Advocate Society of Lawyers. It's the Polish lawyers. So I'm a recent officer of that organization. With the best food at the meetings. Then I'm a member of a subcommittee of the school board in Oak Park called the Claim Committee. We seek to make the education, the elementary schools and the middle schools, you know, more equitable from a legislative standpoint. So we work with the legislators in Oak Park in the District 97 area to see about how we can make things more equitable in the school district. I am also a board member of a group called Lawyers for Choice, where we seek to be allies for women's reproductive rights, to try and, you know, men need to be active in that fight as well. It's not just a woman's fight, it's a man's fight as well. So political organizations, I'm a member of the Democratic Party of Oak Park, and I don't really have, other than the committeemen and the committeewoman, there aren't any officers, but I've been a part of the Democratic Party of Oak Park for about 9 years now.
All right, excellent. I'm gonna turn it over to Alderman Ike Carruthers. He will ask you the balance of the questions.
Thank you, Natalie, and good evening, Attorney Nowinski. Good to see you again. Of course, I've seen you running around the county, as most of your candidates are doing, and I've also frequently seen you as attend our annual Blues Fest.
I can't wait for it every year. I love the Blues Fest, especially if you get up there and play.
Yeah, good to see you again. I want a very brief couple of questions. One, has your campaign received any political endorsements?
Yes, political endorsements. Yes, I'm endorsed by the Cook County Democratic Party. I have, I guess, from most of the committeemen or many of the committee people in the Democratic Party, I'm endorsed by U.S. Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, Senate President Harmon, Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle, Clerk Yarbrough, Circuit Court Clerk Iris Martinez, a bunch of senators, Somerville.
How about any union endorsements?
Yes, the CFL, the Chicago Federation of Labor endorsed me. The firefighters, Local 2 endorsed me. The laborers, IBEW, ironworkers, Teamster 705. So yes, I have extensive labor support as well.
Okay, great. The only other question that I have, and I'm not sure about, but let me have something else, is that if your campaign is endorsed by the coalition, would your campaign be willing to pay $250 fee to help cover the cost incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement?
I would definitely want to learn more of what the coalition does and how it supports it. It's something that I would definitely be interested in discussing further with you, Alderman, and Attorney House and Attorney Lord, for sure.
Okay. Very good. That's all I have, Bob, Natalie.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Attorney Nowinski, for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Tom. And maybe we'll catch some Polish food at Smock Talk.
Absolutely.
Casimir Pulaski there.
I like the Polish Avenue. Yeah, but yeah, this is great.
Good luck to you, Tom. Thank you very much for joining us and waiting in our waiting room.
That's okay.
All right, next. Take care.
Okay.
Next is Marcia O'Brien Conway, and she is also the last candidate that we will be having in our judicial forum. So let's welcome Marcia Conway O'Brien. All right, and
yeah, I see her name there, so maybe she's coming on.
She is, yes, Marcia.
I'm unmuting, and then yes.
No problem. We'll give you.
You probably experienced that with a lot of people tonight, right?
No, it's not a problem. We're just renamed you. There we go.
So patient with me. You must all be tired. I imagine I may be the last one of tonight, right?
You are the last one of our 2-day judicial forum, and we are so happy that you hung in there and waited. We apologize for you waiting in our awful waiting room, our Zoom waiting room, without any refreshments or beverages or anything like that.
Can you
other than the self-supplied ones, of course.
Yeah, we don't see you yet.
You got
Attorney. We don't see
We
you
don't
yet.
see you yet, Marcia, but it'd be great to see you. All right, I think is it coming on now? Yay! Now we see you.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I'm more technologically deficient than I should. But it's I that should be thanking you, because I so appreciate the West Side Coalition for putting this together and giving me the opportunity to answer your questions and, talk to the community. It's fun.
Well, that's why we do these, and this is not our first. That's not the first time we've done it. It's not our first rodeo, but it is the first time, actually the second day of the first time of us doing it online via Zoom. I thought it would be really easy for attorneys to do it, since most of us have appeared in one way or another during the pandemic via Zoom for our cases. So,
For full disclosure, I don't know what's going on, but I don't see Attorney Conway.
You don't?
No, I don't, but maybe they do.
Well, we know why that is.
Don't start. I am on my laptop.
Conway, I Carruthers refuses to get.
Anyway, Marsha Conway is running. She's the other candidate in the 7th Sub-Circuit. Last night, we heard from Shelby Joe Joe Shelby. And so these are the two candidates, Owens Shelby, and now tonight, Marsha Conway. So Marsha, we want to learn all about you. And Natalie, who's doing this? Should I start or you're starting, or I forgot the designation.
However, it doesn't matter, Bob. It's your Zoom.
Okay.
So however you want to do it.
So, Attorney Conway, let's begin by asking you where you went to school, both college and law school, and then more importantly, why is it that you want to be a judge?
Okay. Well, I imagine we'll probably pick up at where I went to high school, which I went to Oak Park River Forest High School. I'm a lifelong resident of the 7th Sub-Circuit. I went to college at the University of Illinois in Champaign, and I went to law school at Loyola University of Chicago. And I think your second question is why I'm running for judge. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I learned early on, as a matter of fact, when I was in law school, the importance of a judge and the impact that a judge can have, the positive impact that a judge can have on individuals' lives. When I was in law school, I volunteered at Loyola's legal clinic. And that was to provide services to persons who needed legal services that could not afford representation. And one of my clients was a woman, a lady with intellectual disabilities, and she had been denied government benefits. And so I represented her before an administrative judge, and I argued, but she was present, the law and the facts, and the judge listened very carefully and reversed the decision that she was not entitled to benefits and granted her those benefits. And I had worked with her and come to know her, and she so richly deserved those benefits. And there was a judge who had just made a huge impact on that individual's lives because he was compassionate, he knew the law, he was fair, and he was honest. So, and everything that I've experienced throughout my nearly 40-year legal career has continued to confirm to me the importance of good judges. And in addition to that, I have sort of a unique experience in that I had triplet children that I raised as a single mother from birth. And because of their premature birth, they had special needs. So we as a family experienced surgeries, therapies, doctor's visits, etc. And I know what it's like to suffer financially, emotionally, medically, physically. And virtually everyone that comes to court is struggling in some way. And so you have to be able to understand the struggle and empathize with the struggle and listen very carefully to people's stories. And if they have the opportunity to speak and they aren't just represented by an attorney, they often bring to the attention of the court facts that are very significant in terms of a court being able to exercise its discretion and to take into account the individual circumstances and conditions of that particular person. Because although I have a strong knowledge of the law because I've been an attorney for so long, I also realize that the conditions and circumstances, it can impact the decisions that a person makes and therefore impact the judge's decision when the judge is able to exercise their discretion. So that's very important. And I know that I can make a difference because I so relate to that. And so, as former President Obama said, we need more compassionate judges. And I happen to be a very compassionate person and have had experiences that have reinforced that for me.
Thank you. You talk about a 40-year legal career and your strong knowledge of the law. let's talk, and can you share with us your legal experience? Tell us about the kinds of areas of law you've practiced in, and also the number of trials you've done, whether bench or jury, and if you could quantify them, that would really be helpful to us.
All right. I have been an attorney for nearly 40 years. I have always been an attorney that's practiced in the civil area of law. And in the civil area of law, I have a wide range of experience. I have both litigation experience and trial experience, but I also have transactional experience. So I started out working for a large law firm, Winston and Strawn, and I was in the litigation department, and I also did transactional work for them as well. And then I had triplets, and I went to work for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in the civil division. And people are very accustomed to hearing about the state's attorney and the criminal division, but I was in the civil division. And I did both transactional work and I did litigation work. And that was a wonderful opportunity for me because, again, because of my life experiences, I was afforded the opportunity to do all the transactional work on things such as the Core Center, which provides services for, originally it was designed for HIV.
Is that the building right next to the Eisenhower Expressway, close to Oakley or something like that?
And I did all the transactional work connected with that's land owned by the county, and it was leased to the Core Center, and then it was leased back to the county to run it. It had an intricate setup for purposes of being able to raise private funds. So I did that, and I did all the transactional work on the women, infant, and children, the WIC centers throughout the county. And I also, and this was wonderful for me, there's a program administered through the federal government and then participating jurisdictions such as the county, and it's called the HOME program. And it provides funds to nonprofits who in turn provide housing to those in need, particularly those that have disabilities, which is near and dear to my heart because often when you have persons with disabilities, they cannot afford to purchase homes or rent an apartment. So that was very vital to me. And so a lot of transactional work. I also represented members of the county board. And then I also did litigation for many years, again with the state's attorney's office and previously with Winston and Strawn. And my practice area at the county was primarily in the area of real estate property tax, although also sometimes various other departments of the civil division pulled me in because they thought that due to various expertise I had, that I would be helpful to them. So
cases before the Board of Review?
Yes, I have appeared before the Board of Review as well as PTAB, as well as the Circuit Court. And in the Circuit Court, it's bench. And I've had 100 bench trials, maybe. Then in terms of jury trials, I have had less because of the nature of my practice at the state's attorney's office. And I also had experience with jury trials at Winston because there was an opportunity to do jury trials. And I actually participated in a trial where we got for our client the largest jury award at that time in Indiana. We represented a coal company suing NIPSCO, Northern Indiana Public Service Company.
What number would you put on how many juries then?
I would say, well, not nearly as many. I would say more than 5.
Okay. Have you submitted for evaluation to the judicial evaluation committees of either the Chicago Bar Association or the Alliance of Bar Associations yet?
Yes, I have. I've been evaluated by all the bar associations, and I have been found qualified to serve as a judge by all bar associations, including well qualified by the Chicago Council of Lawyers and highly recommended by the Puerto Rican Bar Association to serve as judge.
Excellent. I know that my co-hosts have some questions also, so I'll allow them to pose those at this time.
Sure.
Hello, Attorney O'Brien. How are you this evening?
Hi, Ms. House. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. Your hair has gotten much longer since I last
Yeah.
looked. It's getting much longer.
Okay.
We must go really fast. So, okay. So, we're asking the candidates all the same questions. So, my next question for you is, what will you do differently to ensure that African Americans and other minorities that become justice involved are fairly treated in sentence?
Fairly treated in sentencing, or just fairly treated and sentenced?
And sentence.
Okay. Well, again, I have to go back about struggle and what people struggle with. And I'm very familiar with the community on the west side of Chicago. I work with an anti-violence organization called MOVE, which is Mothers Opposed to Violence Everywhere, that mentors youth to try and keep them out of gangs and have them stay away from drugs. And I'm very aware of the struggles that are accentuated in the community. And some of those struggles I can definitely relate to and empathize with, because I've actually experienced some of them myself. But in a different way, I suppose. But one is, I think right now, and people don't seem to talk about it enough, which is, I think there's a real mental health crisis. And I think that mental health crisis is really impacting our youth and our Black and brown youth. And some of that comes from housing, not having adequate housing, not having adequate opportunities educationally and in terms of housing. And some of them have to do with emotional and mental health issues for a number of reasons. They can be from a single parent household, as my children could be. They could have learning disabilities, as my children did. They can have mental health issues that actually arise from the use of, illegal drugs. I know right now, throughout the United States, and maybe in the 7th Subcircuit, most particularly on the west side of Chicago, fentanyl, which is a killer drug, is, the marijuana is laced with it, and it causes bipolar, schizophrenia. If you're predisposed to that can come to the fore. So those are all, you have to know the community. You have to know the people that reside in the community. And those are the individual facts and circumstances that you have to take into account when someone finds themselves in the criminal justice system. Or, there's a lot of civil matters that everybody's involved in too that can be impacted through those situations as well, such as evictions or mortgage foreclosure or inability to pay your property taxes. So I think that a judge, first of all, I'm not in favor of laws that take away the ability for judges to use their discretion. I think that's vital, because that allows the judge to take into account the individual facts and circumstances of an individual. The law is and the application of the law is so much more than just rules and principles. It's a consideration of the people before you and where they started from and how they ended up in the circumstances that they are. And I hate to repeat, but that's why we need more compassionate judges. So I'm very much in favor of, in terms of, if someone gets caught up in the criminal justice system, I'm in favor of alternative sentencing. Mm-hmm. I'm in favor of drug courts, mental health courts, alcohol courts. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're an ex-felon, we have to have re-entry programs so that you have this chance to succeed. You have to put those supports in place. And so I think it's very important for a judge, to go back to the question, I think it's very important for a judge to be aware of what's happening in the community and the community from which people come, and take into account the struggles they face. And I can identify with those struggles. I understand those struggles. and I'm extremely compassionate and sympathetic to those struggles. And also, just as a general rule, I feel as though some people that appear in the court sometimes get short shrift for whatever reason. You know, it could be implicit bias, it could be somebody doesn't like the clothes they're wearing, or, you know, their manner of speaking. That all has to go to the wayside. That is so irrelevant. And so I think it's very important for a judge to put that to the side if it's in their head at all. And also, it's very important to listen to their story and hear what they have to say. And I just think that there's, you know, for the West Side, in terms of Black and brown people and the struggles they face, again, the things I've stressed about alternative sentencing and diversionary things so that things can be addressed. You're going to be so much better off if you have mental health counseling and emotional well-being, and which is why I'm involved with MOVE, and which is why I'm also a supporter of Thrive, which is a social service agency in Oak Park, but it serves people on the west side of Chicago, and it focuses on the family, the community, and the individual so that they can obtain mental and emotional health. And so I think that's critical. And then there's all the things that, this is a long answer.
Okay.
And there's all the things that go into just being a good judge, but even more so with people that have been traditionally disadvantaged. And that is, again, you know, being fair, being honest, being hardworking, and giving all decisions truly careful consideration, because that's what everybody deserves. And so it's very important to like people, and I do.
All right, very good, thank you. Next, our question is, do you feel that sitting judges who are landlords can give a just ruling enforceable in detainer cases?
Oh, what a good question. I find it very interesting that some judges are landlords, first of all. I don't know. To me, I'm not sure I'd want to make a blanket rule. I think that the individual circumstances matter, because if you disqualify someone because of that, there's a whole host of things that they could be disqualified for.
Very true.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also, you know, the judicial rules of conduct, which keep being updated, etc. They really have very good instruction and guidance for judges in terms of when to recuse yourself. And I think it's really incumbent upon a judge to do some real soul searching to say, you know, am I going to be impartial? Am I going to be, is there something that might affect me? And they should then recuse themselves. And also, if someone challenges them for cause, I think they have to take into consideration that they could be biased.
Right.
So, I mean, we have those things in place, but I don't think that we should have a blanket disqualification, because pretty soon you could end up not ruling on anything based on you're this, you're that, and you're this. So.
True. Very good. Very true. And as you said, some of the issues are addressed by the judicial clearance, so, and give judges. So thank you for that. My last question for you is do you belong to any political and or civic organizations? If you can outline any organizations outside of, you know, your legal practice that you belong to, and if you can do that, list them and tell me if you have any leadership roles within those positions.
Well, I think I've already enumerated a few. I'm a member of MOVE, Mothers Opposed to Violence Everywhere.
Right.
And I'm also a supporter of Thrive, you know, and I'm involved in a number of mental health associations, including the National Alliance on Mental Health. I'm involved with a number of autism organizations. So addressing people's mental health is very, very important. So I've done that. I also have an extensive background in real estate. So in the suburb in which I live, I've been on the development review board that passes and determines what can be built there and what can't be built there. And I've been on the Plan Commission, which does that as well. And when my kids were in school, because they were triplets, and because I was a single mother in an area where there aren't a lot of triplets and there aren't a lot of single mothers, it was very important for me to be active in their school. So I was always the room mom and the art mom, although I was working, because I wanted to ameliorate people viewing my kids as outsiders and different, and being disadvantaged by that. And I'm trying to think what else.
Political organizations outside of the ones that you.
Political organizations. I'm a member of the River Forest Democratic organization. And even though I don't live in Oak Park, I am a member of the Oak Park Township organization. And this sounds so crazy. I also am a member of the Democratic Citizens of Berwyn. So I'm involved in that. A very active committee person. And so through him, through his organization, I've been involved, like, making phone calls for Biden and, going out to pass out things for various candidates throughout the county. And I do have the endorsements of, in terms of political people, all the committee persons of Cicero, River Forest, Forest Park. I don't have proviso, but Karen Yarborough has decided she's not going to endorse anyone because of her position as clerk. So I am involved in political organizations. I do have the endorsement of the Chicago Federation of Labor and the Chicago Firefighters Union, which I'm very happy about. And I'm also supported by many faith leaders throughout the West Side, including my good friend, Reverend Robin Hood. He's a pastor at the Redeemed Outreach Ministries, and he's also the founder of Move, which is one of the ways I got acquainted with him, and various other faith leaders throughout the sub-circuit, including Bishop Fitzpatrick and Pastor Spiller and Pastor James and others.
Very good. Well, that only leaves one question left for my colleague, Alderman Ike Carruthers, for him to ask you, since those are your political endorsements and your political organizations. I'm going to turn it over to him so he can ask you the last and probably the most important question to the organization.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Conway, for indulging us and being on so late. But being last has its benefits. You can give real long answers, and there's nobody else waiting to get in behind you. You want to feel bad about that. But the last question is a very simple question, and certainly it's really not the most important question, but it's kind of like one of those questions that all organizations ask, and that is, if the coalition was to endorse your candidacy, would you be willing to pay the $250 fee to cover assistant covering costs incurred by the coalition to promote your endorsement? That's basically the question.
Yeah, and the answer, of course, is yes, because you are providing a service to the people where I'm running the 7th sub-circuit by giving people the opportunity to hear my answers to your questions and other candidates to their questions. So yes, with alacrity, I would do that.
Okay, thank you. And that's all I have.
Okay. Did you ever see me on Zoom?
Oh yeah. It came up. I see you there.
Okay, good.
And as you indicated, for the evidence, I do see the hair. Because I know Natalie referenced your hair had gone on it, so I do see it. So I have evidence that I do actually see you.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
All right.
It's our pleasure. Attorney Conway, thank you so much for appearing on behalf of the Coalition PAC. We're very happy that you joined us and shared with us your qualifications and your background and experience. we wish you the best of luck, and we'll be in contact after our endorsement meeting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, so that concludes our judicial forum. The second day, we're not going to have a third day. All our candidates appeared. We were able to fit them all in. There were a few candidates that didn't respond and didn't appear, and I guess you won't know much about them unless you do your own investigation. But today and yesterday, you got to see the lion's share of candidates running in the judicial Cook County-wide races, the first district appellate race, as both of those, the Harris vacancy as well as the Hyman vacancy, and then also from the 7th sub-circuit candidates, both of them you saw, as well as the 11th sub-circuit. So stay in touch with us. We'll have our next endorsement meeting on the 22nd, and we'll prepare our endorsements, and you'll have them shortly. So thank you once again, and please don't forget to register and don't forget to vote.
All right.
On behalf of Ike Carruthers and Natalie House, thank you for joining us these past days and today.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Bob, Ike, Natalie.